See the comment the other day we got asking if we have a Rogue sponsorship?
Yeah, I did see that. I only wish, man. This is what we're working for, is a Rogue sponsorship. I'm going to stay consistent until I get it.
Wouldn't that be great?
I'm the biggest proponent of these Rogues.
I was at the gym last night. I got down at like 12:40 a.m.
Yeah, not surprised.
I had put 2 Rogues in.
Yeah.
During my gym session at that late at night.
Fuck yeah. I'm telling you, man, it is like the life fuel for me. It has changed everything for me.
Miles an hour on the treadmill.
It's
you do.
changed.
Lorenzo taught me that when we were at doing the mountain ops workout a couple years ago. Not mountain ops, mountain tough.
Mountain tough.
Gosh, I can't talk today.
I mean, close enough.
Close enough.
But yeah, we were actually, Cody and I were talking about you this morning. It's not surprising you were at the gym at 12:40 at night because I came walking in. What time did I say it was?
What do you mean?
This morning when we were giving Brady shit?
No,
it was just you and I on the break. 8:41 or like 8:40 something like that.
Yeah.
And I go, hey, do you think Brady would be jealous that I just finished my first gallon of water and it's only 8:40 something, whatever?
I haven't even been awake.
And Cody goes, he's probably not even awake right now. I go, yeah, the guy's such a night owl, man. It's crazy. The guy's such a night owl. Like to be, and then we were talking, I'm like, to be literally the most dedicated, like hardcore, nasty hunter on the planet Earth. But for like just his lifestyle just doesn't match what you would think. You know what I mean? You would think that would be like in bed at 7, up at 3, you know, like just on the animal schedule. His schedule is literally the most opposite.
Flipped upside down.
I've always been like that my entire life, and I don't know at this point in my life if I can break it. I honestly don't. I want to try. I can't say I've ever tried to break it. But that night is when I get all the work done.
Like the times I've tried to call Brady in the morning,
Cody goes, yeah, he's probably not even awake. I'm like, yeah, probably.
I literally woke up today at 8:36.
I should start trying at like
Close.
midnight.
That was 5 minutes.
Yeah, you were 5 minutes off.
5 minutes off. Like, no joke. I set like literally 8 alarms in the morning. I had big ambitions to wake up at 6:45 and I was going to work on some stuff, but I was like, nah, because I stayed up last night after I got done with the gym until about like 2 writing, because that's like when no one bothers me. Literally, my phone doesn't ring. I don't get a notification. I don't get an email. I don't get anything. I don't get a DM on Instagram that.
Yeah, you're not watching Slack.
No.
Yeah.
I'm literally by myself.
That makes
that's
sense.
my home time my home relaxing time. Where I will go home, do a little bit of stuff. I was cleaning my house last night. I put up another one of my bear hides, and then I went to the gym, and then I relaxed by doing some work.
I do write better at night when there's nobody. That's for sure.
Yeah, I always tell myself like, oh, the mornings, you know, that's why I wake up so early in the morning it's like my time. But Porter always ruins it. I've always got a text from him, or
I know it would switch. You know, if I started doing that and he found out I was awake in the morning, he would probably do the same.
Because he's on a similar schedule. We both have young kids, like the whole school, the whole thing. And he knows I'm awake. I know he's awake, and he ruins it for me every time. I'm like, you just made me look at my phone, and I have this thing set. I don't look at my phone until I get back from the gym. Like I'm dead set. But there are certain people where you're just like, oh, something's going on. You kind of have that like low level anxiety when you see a certain name on your phone, of like you want to make sure everything's good. And he always ruins it for me. I'm like, bro, don't text me some bullshit stuff and make me check my phone and break my rule in the morning. And he seems to always do it.
When I first started, he started doing that a few times on Mondays. And the first time I came in, like, you know, from being from Arizona and coming here, and I'm in the office, and I looked at him one day and I said, hey, do you think it's possible that maybe you don't blow me up like on Monday mornings? Can we do that like on Wednesday? Because like Mondays are like the busiest day and I'm getting blown up by customers. And you got to tell me which one you want. Do you want me taking care of the customer? Yeah. And you know what? It worked. It was so funny because after that, it was like perfect because he blew me up on Wednesday mornings. I'm like, this is perfect.
This is what I gave him shit for. He's an amazing leader, and he like takes feedback super well. He works with people, all this stuff. He doesn't listen to me though. I'm like, bro, don't text me that early. Like then I feel like I didn't do, you know, like I have this thing that I want to do, like put my phone down in the morning until I get home, and then I break it. I'm like, God dang it.
The only time I wake up early right now is to go shoot my rifle.
You do, yeah. You do a lot of that.
Saturday and Sunday, I was up at 5:15 at the range at 6, ready to shoot. The sun is just barely cracking up. I already put my target out in the dark. I'm dialed.
Did you go to the gym the night before though?
Yeah.
And you'll still wake up. See, that's
It
like
sucked. It sucked. But then I got home. I took a great nap.
That's what I was getting to. So, okay, so like during elk season, if you're, are you taking naps in the middle of the day?
Elk season.
He's a big elk guy. Cody knows this.
I know.
You're a big elk guy.
Or are you just grinding? Period. No.
I usually don't take naps. Elk hunting.
I would say more of a rut hunt, right?
When I've elk hunted with trail, when we went to Wyoming. Oh yeah, there was a napping period.
All right.
Mm-hmm. But that's why I really want to switch this schedule over. I should. I enjoy the mornings. I enjoy seeing the sunset. I enjoy having a cup of coffee. I know I would enjoy it. It would benefit me during hunting season greatly.
Enjoy seeing the sunrise, you mean?
Oh, sunrise, yes. Sunrise. See, I can't talk today.
No, honestly, it's mind-blowing to me how dedicated you are to like the nastiest hunter on planet Earth. But then you look at your life schedule and you're like, how the hell does this even work? Like, I don't get it. It doesn't make sense in my head. He just turns it on when he has to. It's crazy.
No.
It's crazy. Let's do we talked about last time. Let's do your weight check-in because you hit goal.
Oh yeah, hit goal. Let me pull it up here on my phone. Let me see what I was at. So
I didn't know. Did you guys have a deal going?
Yeah, we're proud of Brady because he stuck. I think Trail stuck too, right?
You've been gaining. You've been putting muscle on.
I've been putting on a lot of muscle.
Okay.
We talked about like our Porter's a big New Year's resolution guy.
Right.
We talked about who was, who wasn't. And anyways, we all set out like these little things we were going to stick to. Porter made it 14 days of no drinking. So
14 days.
And he was like,
that was his New Year's resolution.
Well, his resolution
wasn't
all of January. And he made it 14 days and he was super proud of himself.
And did he broke?
Oh, he broke.
Big time. Okay.
Yeah, big time broke. Brady has been hard on the train. Like absolutely sticking to it.
Yeah, your clothes aren't.
When you look at my body, what I was during hunting season, and now is a big difference. Like literally, when I got back from my mule deer sabbatical, I weighed 174 pounds.
6'5", 174.
No kidding.
174 pounds. But like
That's
I always will say too, though, my body can function in the mountains all the time. Like I don't feel like I'm being limited. But I do feel like I'm being limited on the recovery side because I'm just...
You're the worst guy to be behind on a trail because I'm not keeping up with you, period. Because
I mean, maybe trail, but no.
You get the long legs and you're toast.
Yep. So then my goal was to be 190 by April 1st, and I need to drink a gallon of water a day.
That's a great
goal. I got to 190 like 3 weeks before April. But it was like up to 190 and then boom, back down to like 187. And then it was like up to 189, back to 186. So I was just slowly gaining. And like 2 weeks before April 1st, I cracked it. And I've been above 190 since.
Where were you at?
I was right at like 182 in January.
Well, what I'm going back to like when you were, 19 to 22, 23.
When I was in high school playing basketball.
Yes.
My little stat sheet said 6'5", 165.
No
165.
Okay.
I
just
literally
all hair and teeth, nothing else.
And short and tank top, right?
I literally had people.
Those are laces
in the town paying me to go to like Culver's and get like the big giant like concrete shakes, like have a ton of calories in it, like after practice, before practice, like in the mornings, trying to like gain weight. On everything, could not gain weight in high school. All my friends are wrestlers. They're like, Brady, you'd be the perfect wrestler. You stay at the same weight no matter what. I could eat a whole pizza myself. I literally could eat a pizza myself. The next day I would still weigh the same.
It's crazy.
That is just insane.
My body when I was younger just burned calories.
It still does now though. Like the night you thought you were gaining weight, you had 2 dinners and you were like super proud of yourself. And then you woke up the next morning a pound lighter.
I lost weight. 2 dinners. I literally lost weight after having 2 dinners.
It was like a big dinner.
Yeah. So today, though, you are 197, right?
Yep. I was 197 on Monday, 197.9. Today I'm 196.
And his next goal was 200 before hunting season. So when we first hired Brady and he came down here, Brady was big, like filled out big. What were you, 212?
212. I was a jack 212.
I remember meeting you, seeing you at shows. And I didn't remember you being as thin as you were.
Yep.
I mean, it's not like we knew each other real well, but I mean, you know people, and I just don't remember you being that thin.
My body burns calories while eating.
This is Brady in a nutshell, though, man. Like, not only did he make it, he's going to make the second goal as well. I mean, hopefully.
So
we
and
do have this Texas hunt coming up. So
yeah, so I'll lose a little bit more weight there somehow. I don't know how I keep losing weight. But even last night, so I got back from the gym at whatever it was, 12:45. I had the biggest meal last night. I had my standard tons of basmati rice. I had 4 eggs, and I had a cup and a half of, I think it was actually ground elk meat.
Big elk guy.
With black beans, and I had a sweet potato.
Wow.
I had all that late in the night.
That's crushing it right there.
That late at night, and then I weighed less today than I did again 2 days ago.
So wait a minute. So by the time you got done eating,
It's probably
you hammered that. What time was it?
Maybe 1:10 in the morning.
it's so crazy.
And when I got back from the gym, I had 2 scoops of protein with some creatine, and then when I went to bed, I had another giant scoop of protein, and I had a spoonful of peanut butter.
Brady and I are the exact opposite. I gain weight looking at food. Brady loses weight eating food.
Yeah. Well, I've got 2 kids that are in the high school, stage of their life, and one's in college. So Ty is 5'10", and he's pushing 185, and the kid is like a machine. He has alarms go off. He eats. He does the whole thing. But when he was trying to get from 175 to 185, that was a push. Mm-hmm. And he was eating like 3 regular meals. He was pushing 2 or 3 shakes a day and 5 PB&Js a day.
Ooh, sounds good.
It was that, like when he went on his recruiting trip, in the middle of his recruiting trip, his alarm went off and the coach was like, we're in a meet, like, what is that? And he goes, time to eat.
I love it.
And the coach just looked at him and goes, oh.
I love it.
Yeah, so it was,
I love it.
Yeah, so it's. I think the gaining weight thing is trying to gain weight and keep it when you're in that stage.
No question.
I think it's a difficult thing to do. But.
So that's been my whole goal now, though, is I want to break 200. I'm trying to do it right. Eat still like very clean, but I try to eat a lot more than I normally would. And then I want to maintain that throughout the hunting season, not have those big drops and then gains and drops and gains. I want to actually like keep the muscle I've gained, because usually I do this all the time where I work out all winter, start gaining weight, and then I start hiking, start playing basketball, which obviously I don't play basketball anymore. And then I just start losing weight as scouting season, hunting season goes on. And then I start back over again in December, just weak, and then just gain myself back up.
I'm on the exact opposite path.
It'll be interesting to hear what you say though when you reach your 200. Mm-hmm. And you get in. I'm not sure if you're going to get into a maintenance phase or whatnot, but I would be. I would think that you're going to not feel weak at all when you get off these hunts.
Yeah, that's
your rebound time is going to be way quicker.
Better.
Yep.
Because your body's going to go, oh, I'm getting back into that right now.
Yep. And I remember when I was 212 hiking around the mountains, I was a machine.
Yeah.
Like even more so than I am now. Like I could tell.
Well, 6'5" body at 174 pounds, that's survival mode. Yeah. That's like legit survival mode.
But then I was talking like when we had Omar on, it's like the one concern I have is I'm going to have to start packing more food in the backcountry. And we all know how hard that really is. Like it's hard to pack on those calories without going crazy and doing like my mass protein shake. Like I used to do that early on my stoveless methods. So I might have to like start doing a mass protein shake on the mountain to get that extra 1,500 calories pretty easy if I have water and just carry my shaker bottle and just try to maintain. So
you'll get it.
One thing I know about Brady, when he sets his mind up, it's done deal. Done deal. Well, today we got Cody Nelson, the glassing guru, back on by popular demand, by the way.
Well, thank you very much. I mean, we've done them before, but it's just I'm glad you're here today. This is the first, right?
Yeah, first for me and you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, normally it's Cody and I doing these little optics
we get
conversations.
so much feedback from for everybody that doesn't know, like I'm on the phones every day, and we get we get so much feedback from people saying, "Man, I love what you guys are doing. I love the podcast. They listen to every episode." So anytime that I get to get the optics out there, I mean, I'm going to take every chance I get and let it fly. I mean, this is the best thing that we do.
Well, you've earned the glassing guru name, and it's the level of information that you are able to talk about on optics blows me away, right? Because I'm just such a simple-minded person, and then when it gets down into I'm like, holy shit, man, this guy is like. I just learned a lot of stuff.
It's been a passion for a long time. You know, even like Jay. You know, Jay gives me the nickname, you know, Glassing Guru, and I don't know when that started, but it was a long time ago. But we've had a lot of fun with that, and it is a passion. I love. You know, some guys are really good at killing and making the stock, and I'm really good at finding.
Yeah.
And I love being out there. I love sitting. I love the quietness. You know, I love not having the phones on. I love, you know, just that there's something about, you know, I think it's the two best times for me personally to be out in the woods is at sunrise and sunset. And the magic that I think that happens in those hours, I think is that it's so rewarding for me. It goes beyond, you know, brother. I've told people in seminars before that I'd rather forget my rifle than my glass, and they just don't just don't understand that. They're like, whoa, and I'm like, well, but if I find them and I leave them alone, I can go back there and do what I need to do.
Yeah.
But if you don't have it, you can't.
If I don't have the glass, I can't, you know. And yes, you could go walk around and tramps around, but then maybe sometimes you're pushing them or doing it. So I just think, you know, leave no trace.
Yeah.
And I like being that. So yeah. But yeah, I'm glad I'm here, guys. This is awesome.
As I've gotten to know you over the years, I believe all of that you just said. The passion is well noticed, and it's always been. I think everyone who's ever dealt with you would say the same thing too. You know.
Well, I appreciate that. Well, I mean, you know, you were clients of mine.
Yeah.
At one time, and then and that happens, and we're in the right place.
We hunted you down just like we did Brady.
Yeah, I'll never forget your dad, your brother. Like all of a sudden, I'm like, who am I surrounded by?
Yeah.
And yeah, so that's been.
We hunted you down.
It's been a good.
Got the kill.
It's been a good relationship, and I appreciate it. So, but yeah, I'm honored to be here. And
you want to hit him with a promo code?
Yeah, let's jump into the promo code right away. So, yeah, as all you guys should know, hopefully you do know, hopefully you guys have been getting your apps in, doing your research. Right now is application season, and to give you guys a little kickback, once you use promo code podcast if you want to sign up for our insider research account. So that involves everything to help you get a tag, filtering 2.0, draw odds, app strategy articles, insider only articles. That's where we give away all the in-depth, juicy information about how to pick up these tags in the West, from over-the-counter opportunities to leftover tags to, you know, diving into each state breakdown, species breakdown, and you get access to Point Tracker, Hunt Planner, Go Hunt Maps. So promo code podcast will get you 50 points back to the Go Hunt Gear Shop. So that is $50. You can then turn around, spend them on some optics.
Absolutely.
And every time you purchase things in the Go Hunt Gear Shop, you're going to get reward points back. So you can start banking those up, start saving them. And, you know, after you make a bunch of purchases, you might have quite a little healthy pocket of points saved up. And like I said, you could turn around, buy a tripod, buy,
you
know,
every day it happens.
Yeah, buy no harness, buy some optics.
Yeah.
And we want you guys to get the best research and get the best gear at the same time. So that's why we want to give you guys a little reward. So promo code podcast and get yourself an insider membership. We all use it. It's literally a game changer for all of us. You know, it's no joke.
It's like a 401k. I mean, it's like if you're not contributing, like you're just missing out on free. I mean, why not?
Couldn't agree more. We try to, you know, it's always hard, like the validation of trying to talk about yourself and get somebody to believe it. But like, we live and die by this. Like, this is how we hunt. And if you're looking to hunt, you know, shameless plug here, but like, it's pretty, I mean, this is it. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Like I always say, like when I lived in Montana, if I had this information that we have now, why was I hunting some of those horrible spots?
If I was in college again and we had this, oh my gosh.
Because it always like, you know, I lived in a pretty decent area and I was like, I'm just going to hunt close to my house.
Yeah. But
that 30 minutes drive to that little spot I hunted, if I would have went an hour and a half the other way, it's completely different.
Way better.
Way better.
Yeah.
It's like you always think you know everything in your backyard, in your home state, but there's actually way more opportunities or way, you know, different terrain that I was actually more suited to hunt I was just hunting something close to home, and there wasn't a lot of animals to begin with in that area. It was just something I did. I didn't have all this information in front of me. You just had a regulation book that was super confusing, and you just had what your buddies were saying or your friends and family, like, oh, yeah, we've hunted here the whole time. Well, were you guys successful? Like, yeah, every now and then you kill something. Like, every now and then. Like, I want every year success, you know? I want to find animals. I want to see them. I want to be able to glass them.
Yeah, I'm pretty confident I would not have graduated if this was, you know what I mean? Like that's because that's what it does, man. Like I am really confident I wouldn't have graduated because of where I would have been hunting Montana plus South Dakota plus Oregon
that's
plus
the thing
Idaho plus, because it's all, I would have been hunting all of it.
Yeah.
Well, that's the thing that I think that would have affected me differently because I'm way late to the game. Mm-hmm. I've been so blessed to be in Arizona and have the quality of the game that we do, and so that kind of shaded me one way. But then, if I had the information that we give out to people, I would have. God love my wife. She, she puts up with me as it is, but I don't know. I would have been way behind the 8 ball, but I'm behind the 8 ball now. But I just can only imagine what I would have been doing, and so it just. The information it gives and the time it saves me now, what used to take me hours to do with having 3 kids and a wife and we're putting in all those tags, it's dwindled down to nothing. It's just a simple process now. It's so easy.
Yeah, going through this and building it, one of the things that stuck out in my head the most is, so I grew up in Nevada, obviously, and I hunted Nevada and Utah. But like Arizona was always kind of I don't know, just the paradigm in my mind was like, oh, there's, it's hard to get a tag.
Right.
And the one thing that's the amount of opportunity and quality in Arizona is incredible. It's like, it's literally, once we started building this out and I'm looking through Arizona on our platform, I'm like, holy shit. Like, how was this not a thing? It's crazy. And not a lot of Nevada residents ever thought.
We tried to keep it a secret.
Yeah. It's the amount of quality and opportunity there is incredible. So it's awesome being a resident there.
Yeah, I feel blessed to be there, and it's I've drawn some really, really good tags over the years and had a lot of fun with it. But now again, the selfless plugs for the information that I used to have to extract from from the game and fish, and now it's at my fingertips and being able to do that so quickly that I used to dread putting in because I was like, I just don't have the time to go do all those statistics, and it's at your fingertips. Why would you not do it?
And it comes down to it's years off your life. It literally is. If you don't have the best plan in front of you and you don't know how the draw system works or what bonus points do, what preference points do, like you are setting yourself up for failure in a sense. You are literally applying for things you have no chance to draw because you've heard it's a great place, but really you statistically will never draw that in maybe your lifetime. So why are you throwing your app towards that unit?
Exactly.
When you could be hunting some other stuff every single year, gaining that knowledge, gaining that intel, becoming a more proficient hunter for that species.
Yep.
And it's like, even people who pick up the regulation book, like you remember, back in the day when we were in Montana, you could pick up the regulations. It would say, hey, here's some draw odds. That was just simple odds. That was just absolute odds.
That was not taking in government odds.
That was not taking into account resident, non-resident quotas. That's not giving you the best tool in front of you to make the best decision.
Right.
So you're setting yourself up for failure by wasting years off your life. Those are prime years you could have been hunting maybe somewhere else or in that state or another state.
And I think it also allows somebody to go, okay, these are my best hunts that I want to try for.
Yeah.
But there's other places where I can create opportunity that if I want to hunt that year, I can do that too.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I think there's it really truly allows a guy to kind of, build his, I call it portfolio, if you will.
That's pretty much what it is.
And hunt planner and get that going and put yourself in the best spot to either hunt every year or, if you're trying to get the best tags you can get, it allows you to do that too.
Yeah,
So.
because you need to set yourself up for a now plan and the future.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to get at is like this game that we all play, this hunting thing. Like if this is what you're doing and getting into, the main rule of this game is you have to have a future plan and start now. Look, you might be like, oh, that's 4 or 5 years down the line, whatever it is. It seems so far. I'm telling you, in 4 or 5 years from now, you're going to be like, holy shit, it's here. And now, you have to have a future. Even if you are what we always talk about, Wyoming resident, right?
Yeah,
You get taken care of so incredibly well, right? Like that is an amazing state to be a resident in. I'm telling you, you got to plan for the future.
Right.
If you're going to be in this hunting game, and like you have to have those 5-10 year plans. You just have to. It's just the way it is. I mean, I'm not saying it's the good part about this lifestyle, right, that we all choose to do. I'm not saying it's fun. It's just the reality of it is like if you're not planning ahead, you're going to be behind the 8 ball at some point. You're going to be. It's just plainly that simple.
Well, I mean, because if you look at the tags, so my elk tags in Arizona were 98, 2008, 2016, and then 2022. So there's a lot of time in between that stuff that if a guy really wants to, I mean, if you're, and and by the way, those were all good, above average tags by far.
Yeah.
But I could have played the other game, and I just chose not to because I always like going with my buddies or doing whatever we're going to do, and so that was always the thing. But I think if I were to look back, and I had GOHUNT 20 years ago, and there's a lot of gaps in there that would have been filled by other things, and that's I think the point is you fill the gaps now. Like if you're not putting in, you're literally spinning your wheels.
And like you said, you were drawing above average tags. Like that, that's a lot of people's strategy is your home state, your resident state.
Right.
That's what you swing for the fences on.
Yep.
And then you go travel and these other non-resident tags, that's what you fill in with, right?
Exactly.
And then you obviously have the best chance of drawing those sky high units in your home state as a resident.
Yeah, I always look at like my family, for example. I grew up in Minnesota. Obviously, I've taken over my family and their friends' applications, so I'm setting them up for future success. Like my brother, he just started getting into this Western game a couple years ago. He's like, hey, I see you guys go to Montana every year. I want to start doing that. And I was like, I've been waiting for that moment in my life where he's now hooked on the Western hunting. So I took him to Montana. He didn't have a tag. Went around with my dad and I. Now he's addicted. So he's like, Brady, what can I do right now to start planning this? So when I have the time with my job, because now he's moved up the ranks in his job and now he's bought a business. He's like, I don't have the time right now, but I want to have the time in the future. So I was like, all right, I'm going to start buying you points here in this state, in this state, in this state. And he's like, well, I don't really think I'm ever going to hunt antelope. I'm like, well, what about 5 years from now?
Yeah, you think that now.
Yep.
Yeah, that's that future plan.
Yep. You're going to be very thankful that I was getting you points for these certain states, for certain species, because then when you're like, hey, me and my buddy want to go to Colorado, Brady, what does it take for me to get a Colorado tag? Well, you didn't tell me that earlier and you had 0 points. You're not going to draw it now. But since now I know he wants to be in the game, now I'm applying for those points. So when he has the time and the money built up and the family freedom, he can go hunting and have fun.
Dream a little bit and plan.
Exactly. Little foresight.
Yeah, just a little bit.
Foresight.
Absolutely.
You think you don't want to do it now, but I'll tell you what, you have a 5-year-old son, you're going to wish you had antelope points, and you're going to wish you could just cash them in. I just want to go hunting. I just want to take them hunting. Well, those 5 antelope points you just built up are going to come in real handy.
Yeah.
And like I said, even that guy who lives in Wyoming or Montana who literally can hunt, 7 species a year pretty much all the time. What about you eventually be like, man, I've done this same Wyoming hunt all the time. I want to experience a hunt in another state. I want to chase something else. Well, even though you can hunt every single year, basically over the counter, a bunch of species, you could be planning and building points up for those surrounding state areas. So that way you can go do that. Or like you said, take your son out, take your daughter out and go have a great hunt together. In some new country.
You're not creating opportunity if you don't do it.
Yeah. No shit.
So let's jump back into some optics, Cody. Since
we knew we were going deep on that today.
Yeah.
We want to go deep. What do you got like that you've seen, either new in the gear shop now related to optics, or some things maybe we can touch on that might be coming that you're really excited about?
The Nightforce thing's been exciting. We've gotten really good traction of that. We've got the NX8s have done well. We're starting to add the Attacker series will be coming. There should be a couple just arrived. Should be getting that fully on the site soon.
When we actually get Nightforce in, that's been a fairly recent ad, right?
Yeah, that's been within the last month.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we've actually done pretty well literally without having. It's sometimes we get in that thing of like we want to put the marketing and get everything, and sometimes I almost kind of like to put them out there sometimes and let them prospect on their own. Like what does it do with just people surfing the site? And we've had a lot of people that have called and like, oh, I see you have Nightforce now.
Yeah.
So at least we know people are out there searching a little bit. But now, part of doing this, we'll hit the marketing hard and let people know we've got them. And so, and I know that people will call off of this podcast and go, hey, I didn't know that you guys even had them now.
Yep.
And
what do you think is like the staking point for Nightforce? Like what is their thing?
100% for me is rugged reliability. That if I just had to say one thing that, and I could say it about any, other rifle scope out there, I would just sell it. If I had to just choose one, because I have such a reverence for the people that kind of laid that work down years ago, and the battle tested, the guys who literally put it to the test, mm-hmm. and the stories that I've heard and the things that people have told me over the years and things that I've seen. I got to shoot them at the FTW ranch extensively, and I was really impressed by just how positive it was of an experience. When you tell it to move, X number of clicks, that's what it does. And I really like
year
that.
After year.
Yeah.
That's that rugged part of it,
yep.
reliability. 30 years from now, it's still going to be clicking the same.
I truly believe that.
Yeah.
They're made to be used like that. And I think it's repeatability that makes it so good.
Yeah. That's why we're excited to bring them on, is when you were telling us that about them, we're like, shit. Rugged reliability, Western hunting kind of go hand in hand.
And I don't know if it's one of their taglines or not, but I always, when people ask me, I'm like, they're battle tested, battle proven. Mm-hmm. And anybody that knows people in the military that, they take care of their stuff to a degree because their gear takes care of them. But the number of people I've talked to, and then in the hunting world, the guys that have been using them long before a lot of others, that's kind of their fallback. That's what they go to every time, and they never have an issue.
Yeah.
And again, I always have to be that guy that, like, there's other companies out there too. Mm-hmm. And I'm not trying to, say one, but it's just the fact of it is that there's just certain products out there that you go, you know what? If I was going to do that and it was shooting this today, that's what I would do.
Yeah. My dad's been shooting Nightforce for a long, long time.
Yeah.
And that was one of his biggest questions. I was like, hey, when's GOHUNT going to start carrying Nightforce? And I was like, drop the feedback in there. And that's why I want to kind of
Your dad's been a long range guy for a while, right?
Quite a while. He was like an OG long range guy back in the day.
Yeah.
Like, he literally had the old, little PDAs?
Right.
To, like, you pop out with a little tap thing on there to, like, do his ballistics and all that. Like, he has been a geek in it for a long time. He was always, Nightforce, because of, like you said, the durability and just knowing, like you said, if you go up 13 clicks, it's exactly what it's going to be.
I think that's what it was. If you look at the history of, and I'm 52, so I've kind of done this a little differently. My dad was the guy that was like, okay, you sight your 30-06 in at 100 or 200 yards, and then you really don't shoot past 3. And
the good old days.
And by the way, don't ever touch your turrets. Mm-hmm. Like, leave them be. Like, that's bad for them. Well, it might have been bad for some of them, but I remember shooting one of my favorite scopes that he had on a Model 70 sniper rifle that was, it was just Gary Schneider barrel. The whole thing was so accurate, it was ridiculous. But we had an old Weaver T10 on it. And that system in the T10s were unbelievably accurate. And I would say that there's a lot of systems out there that have basically modeled themselves after that system. Well, it's taking that, and I think what this comes back to is it attributes it to when somebody calls me and they're going on hunt of a lifetime and they're doing something, it allows me to instill a little bit of confidence in that. Mm-hmm. Because we all know there's nothing worse than thinking, is my rifle going to do what it does on the range? Mm-hmm. And I think that's the thing when you have a Nightforce or a Swarovski or a Vortex, or I was just answering a question about the Gen 3 today. The thing of it is that when you give somebody that confidence that scope's going to do what we say it does,
yep.
They come back and they give you the feedback like, man, I just crushed the whatever animal that I was trying to kill for whatever, and I think that's what drives it. I think you search those products and you figure out what works, and some products do that better than others. And I think Nightforce is one of those ones that just allows you to just feel really good that once you've got it set up right, it's going to do what you tell it to do.
That anxiety goes away.
Yeah,
with a scope
absolutely.
Like that. Yeah.
And I think that's, I don't know about you guys, but I just, I would not call myself, I've shot out to 1,800 yards before, and that's a long way. I would not call myself a 1,000-yard shooter on a regular basis, but I'm the guy that feels really comfortable at shooting, 5 to 750. That to me, that's kind of my wheelhouse. I know I can do it farther, but I just know when I set my equipment up and when I do those things that I just don't have a question about it. So it's just about finding all that gear that lets you do that.
Yeah.
How often when you're thinking about bringing stuff on to the gear shop, do you take into account some customer feedback? Like people are like, hey, I noticed you don't have this. You thinking about this? Or do you get questions like that a lot?
We get a ton of feedback on that, especially if something's not as well known. There's like a new product out there and things are coming along. I think it's good to listen to the public.
Yep.
There's a bunch of gearheads out there that are doing what we do every single day, and they're forming their own opinions and they're putting stuff to the test, and I think it's a good thing to listen to your audience, and I'm not going to tell you that I've never made a mistake with a product. I mean, of
course
we all do. So but that's why you keep. I think from the time when I started at GOHUNT to now, I can look back at my own buying and my own thought process, and there was definitive holes in it. And I think we're filling those holes on a daily basis right now and it's by listening to the, the subject matter, guys we have.
Yep.
And then listening to the calls that I get, daily, or, even if it's just an email or a text, that keeps coming in and say, hey, you guys got Nightforce yet? Or you guys got, when are you getting this? Or, have you heard of this product? And it does. It sometimes, in social media now, holy cow.
It's instantaneous.
And I try to, you try to watch all this stuff. My wife, it drives her nuts. She's like, what are you doing on there? Well, if I see that somebody's tagged a product or whatever, like I spend an infinite amount of time like going to cat. I've not seen that product before. So, then you go research it and you figure out, well, maybe I ought to be looking into that.
Yeah.
And so it's just, it never stops.
I mean, that's essentially how we built this business too, right? Like I've been asked a lot, like, hey, did you ever think like what you have today with GOHUNT? Did you think that's what it was going to be? And my answer is kind of, but like, no. I mean, how could you foresee what it is? Because as you start to get mass people and you start listening to feedback, I mean, you're starting to see things from a million different ways where you're like, oh, my mindset and how I thought about that was dead wrong. That's just me and my paradigm in my head. Right. And then you start listening to the feedback and then you start building it out to like, you see it from so many different angles, so many different ways to see it. It's like, no, we could have never like thought that this is what it was going to be, right? Because it's taken so many different paths as the more feedback comes in.
Right. Well, and I think, I mean, look, ego plays a little bit into it. I mean, I'm willing to say that, right?
Of course.
But and I'll use your scenario. You guys came to me because you were looking for specific things, right? Well, you get a little bit of like, these people are calling me. They're asking me what to do, what to use, what to whatever. And so you think, okay, well, let's build this optics, site, and we're going to let people buy things. And you get kind of trapped in your own little head. But Brady comes in and Brady tells me, hey, Cody, like, what do you think about this? And at first, this kind of goes into a little deeper dive about who we are and what we learn and becoming good listeners. Sometimes you just got to listen to people and go, okay, you know what? These guys are telling me something. I really need to do this. I really need to look at it differently. And I think that's the one thing that I've gotten better at doing over the years is like, it's not my way. It's our way.
Yeah.
It's our thoughts. It's our, it's that collection of thoughts of people allowing us to like man, I didn't even think about looking at that product.
Yeah. I know we've had those conversations quite a bit.
I mean, it happens. I don't want to say it happens weekly, but it's almost weekly. You're like, ooh, man, I didn't even think about that. Mm-hmm. And so you start, the self-reflection stuff. I think allows people to grow and allows people to make better decisions. And I'm with Lorenzo on that. Like, even when I started, I was like, man, this is really good. Like, we had a great, first year when I got here, and then you're like, 2 years later, it just exploded. And we're like, whoa. And so in my own mind, I'm like, oh, I can get over that hump now. Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
Since we're on the podcast for the first time together, I'll tell you the story behind that. So we were doing this store, and then we've been talking internally. Porter and I were talking. We're like, look, we want to be the optics authority. Like, we want to be known as the optics authority, and we will be if we get the right people and we do it for long enough, right? First thing, we need Cody Nelson. Like, let's go get him. Like, we want to be the optics authority, and we will be with the right people. So that's why we went after you. Yeah,
it's it was funny because, look, my previous deal, that was I learned a lot, and I have a great deal of respect for them, and yes, things didn't go as I planned, but that's okay.
Yeah.
Opportunity. When my mom always said, when God closes a door, He opens a window.
Yeah.
And so, and I remember there was a time, and I think back about this. There was a moment that was like it wasn't that year, but it was like a year before, where I remember Chris saying something to me that I took away, and I just was like, did he say what I think he said? But he was like, hey man, when are we gonna get to do something together?
Yeah.
And it wasn't like this recruiting thing, like, hey, it wasn't.
We were testing the warmth of the water.
No, and I just remember that, like, did he say what I think he said? And so it happened, and things align, and things happen for reasons, and I know I'm where I'm supposed to be.
Yeah.
And you guys have given me an opportunity to create what I wanted to create in terms of an optics business. And I do. I take ownership of that. I'm very proud of that. But I work with the best people in the industry that allow me to do that. And so, and that's not you guys know me well enough to know that's not blowing smoke up anybody's skirt.
No,
that's just,
definitely.
There's a give and a take, and you guys ask a lot and you guys want a lot. But that's just flat out, period, you giving me the opportunity to do what I love doing.
Yeah.
And I say that as much as I possibly can because it's true. Yeah. So the fact that we're sitting here today, it just tickles me pink, brother. I mean, it's just.
Well, we said incredible. Too, like we don't ever want to be, the big box, just slinging optics left and right, just anything we can get our hands on, this, that, whatever, every brand.
We've had a few of those talk.
Yeah, it's like that's not us. Like we're not talking about being the optics authority on like how many optics we sell compared to like somebody. Right. We're talking about being the optics authority of like, look, what we carry is what you need, and here's why.
Right. Like we use it, we trust it.
Yeah, exactly.
It's always about procuring, and I truly, there's nothing that's in our optics shop that I don't look at and go, yeah, I would put that on this. Mm-hmm. I would put that on that. This is what I would use that for. This is who I would sell, this for that given purpose. Mm-hmm. And that's the thing is I've gotten, I think the thing that has allowed me to do what I do in sales is it's not just about what I'm telling somebody. I learned that at the gun counter, and I learned that honestly by watching, there was a point in time where I had a couple of females that were working a gun counter, and that 10 years ago, it's 14 years ago now, like I would have, if you were a girl standing there and there was a guy, men would walk right up and look at the two of them behind the counter and go right to the guy.
Yeah.
And I all of that, it kind of forced me to look at like how you sell to people. It's not about what this person says. It's about listening to the customer and figuring out what their needs are. Mm-hmm. And asking questions and learning from that person. Oh, that's what you want to do. Yep. Well, scratch what I just said. Like, it's not about my ego in that situation. And gun sales, for most of my life, were a lot about ego.
Mm-hmm. Listen, here's what you need.
Yeah, this is what you need. And back in the day, I'll bring it up. Like I learned from some guys, Dusty Erickson and John Weir, and I mean I can name, Don Brooks out of what used to be called the Don Sports Shop, which is no longer in business. I literally was going into that shop when I was 5 or 6 years old. When we didn't even live in the town, but that's where we went to get stuff. And then later on, when I lived close, when I got a bike and a car, man, I was down there every day watching those guys sail, and it was never about the ego. It was always about just listening to people. And I learned that at a really young age of watching those guys, and it was a good thing. And and I think it just allows us to do this here is listen to people. I get to talk to them on the phone every day, emails every day, texts every day, and it's just about listening to what their needs are.
Yeah, because each person could have specific needs. They might call you up and say, "Hey, Cody, I'm thinking about, this binocular or this spotting scope."
Yep.
And you could literally dive in and give them reasons, pros, cons, maybe your opinion. But then you're gonna ask them, well, what's your use case going to be? I've heard you do it a lot. Like, what is your specific use case? How are you going to use said tool for the job? And they're like, I'm going to use it this way. I'm going to be hiking a lot. So, okay, if you're going to be hiking a lot, well, let's cater you down to maybe a little bit more lightweight package that you'll be dual purpose. So if you live in the East Coast and come out here, it'll work in both places.
It's kind of like we were talking about the spotting scopes, right?
Yep.
And packing. Okay, do you want performance and like good digiscoping pictures, or being able to see little tiny details, or do you want lightweight and space savings?
Yep.
But somewhere along the line, you got to choose.
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, they just perform differently.
Yeah. So listen to the customer and figuring out what they want.
It's about listening to what that person really, really wants to do.
Mm-hmm.
And we're, the products that are coming out that are allowing us to do those things are getting better and better and better. So, for instance, that ATC, STC from Swaro it's just ridiculous.
Yeah.
So I've been actively asking and bugging the guys at Swarovski and anybody else who will listen for a decade. Like, when are we going to build something? Because nobody else is doing this.
Yeah. You bet your ass that's in my pack for that stone Jeep hunt.
Absolutely.
Guarantee that.
You know what the fascinating thing about that thing is that what most people don't realize is it's not a component. So it's not like, I mean, when you normally take an eyepiece in a body and put it together, you've got filters on the outside of that are no longer, it's all one contiguous piece. So the truth be told is like, I'm just excited because they've been so popular. I haven't really got my hands on one for any longer than a couple weeks, but I want to do the resolution charts on it because I think it's gonna blow some people away.
So that's why it's so clear for being so small.
Well, yeah. I mean, I've been told that it was basically built more like an EL binocular than it was, an ATS or STS or ATX spotting scope is what I've been told. And so I think that there's some, when they narrowed it down, I mean, like, why would you pick 56 millimeter body? And so I think when they did that, they kind of figured out, okay, this is how low we can go here. This is what we can do. And I think that attributes to it a great deal.
Yeah. You excited about that, Brady? You like that?
Oh, I tested that one on the Mueller sabbatical.
Yeah. And you like it?
I loved it.
Yeah.
What I really enjoyed was the packability. Like, that thing is the size of, a 16-ounce water bottle, basically.
Right.
It is small. Crazy, man.
But you're not sacrificing anything on brightness or clarity. Like, when I throw a digiscope on there, it's crisp. When I look at my eye and I'm glassing around, scanning with it, and trying to pick up an animal in the shadows, I could see all intricate little details that I felt like, was blown away with how small it is. Like, how can I see what I'm seeing right now?
Well, so a lot of people would ask right now, like 65 or 56, right?
Yep.
And between like the ATS and the 25 to 50 eyepiece, and when you compare those two, and the way that I describe the performance is, if we would all agree that a 2 millimeter exit pupil is about like acceptable for a spotting scope, that I can see pretty clearly, It looks good. I'm not struggling to get behind the eyepiece and really look into it. So if 2 millimeters is what we're after, that would mean like on an 80 millimeter, you'd be at 40 power, right? With a 20 to 60. So you'd be at 40 power, okay? And then on a 65, you'd be like 32 and a half power. So that little spotting scope, now you're at 28 power. So the idea is that, okay, so for that small a package, you're only going down 4 power to where you would have relatively the same exit pupil. And all I'm saying is that, am I really going to miss that 4 power, or am I going to miss that space and weight savings? Again, it comes to a personal choice.
Yep.
And some people would say, oh, I'd just rather take the 65. I can handle that weight. But there's some guys that really want that diminished size. But here's the best part of this. When you turn the 56 millimeter up, the ATC up, or STC, I just didn't feel it diminishing like other spotting scopes were diminishing. So, yeah, it's going to be really fun as soon as they're kind of out of the back order situation. And I'm hearing good things about that. But as soon as that, we'll have them to test more and to really play with. But it's an awesome piece. But
and it's pretty much the same as ATX, right? In terms of eyepiece. Same,
same size.
Yeah, it's the same size. That's what I noticed right away.
So my digiscoping,
everything works.
The rings, I can flip them back and forth.
Yeah, so
and that's how I did that first test that we did. That turned out really, really good. I was blown away by how good it was, and I was comparing it to an 85 millimeter at the time. I mean, if I can take a 400 or 500 yard target, and I'm looking at both things, and I was like, wow, this is really interesting. Yes, I can turn the power or the magnification way up on the 85, but when I would turn it to 40, I was like, wow, that we're not falling off the table like I expected.
No, most spotters, when you get to that high magnification range, you start losing something. That 40x is still very clear, very bright.
It was really good, and I was really impressed by that. So
yeah, I've always found myself like I very rarely go full zoom on those spotters, like very rarely.
100% agree.
There's
a window there that it's kind of like when the ATX STX first came out. And Randy Ulmer was in the shop and he looks at me, he goes, Cody, is it really that good? Because that was the first time we got 30 to 70. And I literally looked at him and I said, Randy, it's going to be so good, it's going to scare you, because I've never seen anything from that 50 to 70 power that was that clean.
That kept it, yeah.
And I was like, wow. And it did. Jay and all the guys that were around, we were just blown away by, because the old 20 to 60 by 80 that was kind of the one that everybody judged everything against. When you turn that up to about 50, it was like, you could start to see things diminish. But boy, oh boy, when that ATX STX came out, that was like, that changed the game. That 70 power was achievable.
Yeah.
One thing I also really grew to enjoy too, which maybe a lot of people don't think about. So you're saving weight, obviously. Impackability is going to be lots, takes up less space in your backpack with the ATC or STC. So it's lightweight package. But then what I'm also been able to do, I can then take a smaller pan head. It's going to be a little bit lighter.
Smaller tripod.
Smaller tripod. So I'm actually not just losing weight on the optic. Yeah, I'm losing backpacking weight in 2 other places. So now collectively, you don't even feel like it's on your back anymore.
Well, I don't know if it's force multipliers. You're doing more than just one thing.
Yep.
Yeah, that's
but you're not sacrificing a lot. You're not sacrificing. That's the big thing. Like going on a hunt to me, I've been packing around that 115 in BTX for a long time, but I didn't feel like I was missing it as much as I thought I was going to when I was out there using it. And that's saying something to me, because I'm willing to pack a heavy optic, because at the end of the day, for me, optic, like you said, you have to find the animal to kill the animal. So I'm willing to sacrifice there to carry heavy optics. But when I was using it, I was like, dang, this is pretty nice. I can pack more food. I'm not going to, all these other things I can do with that lightweight package and still be able to glass and have that performance.
And this is part of what you do, like being the optic or the glassing guru, it's so much more than just the optic, right? Like there's 4 main components in my mind. You can disagree with me here if you'd like. I want to get your opinion. Like there's the glass itself, obviously. Yep. Then there's the attachment of the glass to the pan head.
Yep.
Then there's the pan head itself.
Yep.
Then the tripod.
There's nothing to disagree with.
To be the glassing guru, it is all 4 of those that work with each other, right?
Yeah,
like we talk about it all the time. You never put a BTX on top of a, some little
you can't
lightweight setup.
That's the thing is you like, so people ask me every day, like, Cody, what do you carry? It's like, well, I don't know. I got about 15 different tripods that I play with and whatnot, but I test certain things on other. I mean, there's always a testing phase going on, right? But I tend to lean myself towards I want stability. I will take stability over lightweight almost every time.
Yep. So, built like I am, I'm a pack mule to begin with. So I've never really looked at an extra couple pounds and went, I mean, bottom line is that when you have those things together and they're fluid and everything works in conjunction, I mean, I almost, I almost get kind of romantic about it. Like it's a fluid motion.
Yeah.
And I'm looking with my 15s and I'm sliding that off and I'm putting that down and I'm putting my straight spotter, and I'm now on the same zoom and I'm looking at what I should be looking at, and I'm turning up the magnification to match where I'm at, and all of a sudden this image arrives and you're like, man, that just made my whole morning.
Yeah.
And then if the deer starts moving, or let's say they're rutting, and you can follow that deer, there's nothing more fun to me than watching a coos buck that's nose to the ground and it's just searching, right? And all of a sudden that animal stops and your fluid head, your pan head comes to that point where it stops and there's no bounce back, there's no reverb, and you're right on him. And all of a sudden for a brief moment, you're like, did he just disappear? Did he not? And you're like, nope, he's right there. I got him. And he starts to move again, and you could do figure 8s with the fluidity of that head and stop and let your hands off and let it hold.
Yeah.
And just look. And those are those moments that I go, my stuff is doing what I asked it to do.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. When you have like those 4 components I just talked about, like it's the first is the optics, and then the other 3 are to get the most out of that optic, right? Like that's the most expensive piece, obviously. I think we all know that. But it's like, man, now you have to find its partners, right? Like it's things that it likes and that'll hold it and function in stability. Like you said, are you going for stability or lightweight? Like if you're going stability, well then you need the right attachments in the right places. You need the right pan head that can handle the weight, the right tripod to not bounce in the wind and not, like all that stuff.
Yeah. God, Lorenzo, I could talk about this stuff for days, but like what you're saying right there is so important, because Brady and I were having this kind of conversation not too long ago, and the question came up of, what do you think has changed the most over the years? I'm 52, right? So
yeah,
let's just say, I've been actively trying to grab binoculars since I was probably 4 or 5 years old, and they were the Tasco 7x50s that my dad had in the truck, and I was riding out and hanging out the window, and my dad would say, you just just keep your eyes peeled, right? I've been I hear that all the time in my brain when I'm glassing. Keep your eyes peeled, just be patient, it'll come. Yeah. And so I think that the biggest thing that's changed the game in optics is the tripod. When I look back into the articles that changed me forever in terms of what I was trying to do in terms of coos deer hunting, it all comes back to glassing off of a tripod. Because I can look at the articles that were written by Craig Boddington when Boddington would go down and be hunting with Dwayne Adams, who's,
the guy.
Back in the day, the McClures and the Adams and all those people from San Manuel and Jensen's out of Tucson. Are you kidding me? That was the Mecca. And I would read these articles and I would see these guys with these, I mean, just, and I'm not trying to, I'm not even make fun of it, because, but it's what we had. It's these tripods that were tiny, thin tubed, like silver.
Yeah. And set up for a different purpose.
And guys, and I'll never forget the image in my mind. He was sitting on like a big rock perch overlooking a giant basin, and he's got a set of 1560s ice. And I literally remember myself, I was like, I want to do that. How do I do that? And it wasn't too much longer. I was probably, I don't know, I was 14, 15, something like that. And I remember my dad going on a first hunt. He was actually teaching in San Manuel, or principal, I can't remember what it was, but he was asked to go on a deer hunt, and he started telling me about what they were doing. And he was like, clear up on the Catalinas, and he was on these, you know, high deals, and he's using tripods. And at the time, there wasn't even like people were setting binoculars on top of stuff and like strapping them down with surgical tubing and things. That's like the ingenuity and the contraptions that I saw were ridiculous back in the day.
Don't they, necessity is the mother of innovation? Isn't that the saying?
Yeah.
Right? Like you need it, right? Like everybody knew, okay, the glass is good. Like it's far more capable than me holding it. So like now what's next, right?
Yeah,
but
those are the days. But the tripod, I think, I mean, if you really think about it, like, yeah, you can sit in glass, but I think of when I see somebody glassing that's not on a tripod now, I think of not what they saw, but what they missed.
100%.
Because I have sat countless times, been on a little knob or peak or whatever, well before light, hiked in the dark, got cooled off, you know, opened everything up, you know, dried off before dark, and you're sitting there and you can see a car drive up, or I mean a truck, and everybody piles out and they're doing this and they're glass and they're walking around, and they just don't even know that I've spotted deer that are right below them, right across from them, 15 minutes before they're even there. And they do this and they get bored and they whatever, and they're dancing around and walking on the ridge, and I've seen deer just lay down. And then they get up and drive and go off to the next place, or they get on their UTVs or ATVs or whatever they're doing. And I think that aside from the sunset, beautiful, you know, a river runs through it moment, to me, like that's the moment I go, they just don't have a clue.
Yeah.
Like this deer are right there.
Yeah.
So I just want to hammer that point home then. So you think one of the most influential things in optics over the last, let's say 15, 20 years is a tripod.
Tripod. I can tell you the tripod, I think when Swarovski came around and you know, they started, when they basically did the 15, these things were, you know, I don't want to go back and tell that somebody was the original, you know, spark or whatever, but that 15 was created, and that was a pretty cool thing. But I think when people really, but even if you're using a tripod I've used tripods with an 8. People don't realize how good an 8 can be. You got a super wide field of view. It's super bright because you got a bigger exit pupil. People don't give it. You know, I wrote that article, and the first time I really had hunted with a guy that used an 8x56 off a tripod, I was like, I kind of, in my mind, the back of my mind, going, doesn't he realize there's 15s?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, doesn't he realize there's 10x50s? And if we called Chase right now, literally I was kind of bugging him because I'd never done it before. I was like, hey, let me see those. And I'd walk over there and look, and I'd be like, holy cow, like it was dark. And we were on a elk hunt for Mike Shamadan, and we're, you know, I'm with a bunch of firefighters, and, you know, firefighters got gear coming out everywhere, and we're looking at this, and I'm like, holy cow. The exit pupil on that glass was 7 millimeters. So you got the band of light touching your eye is 7 millimeters, and that is huge.
Mm-hmm.
Your eye probably can't even take in all that light. But he was finding stuff before we were.
Yeah.
The 8s.
Because it was pitch black. I mean, it was dark, and he's like, "Oh, I got elk here, and I'm like, "Man, that's perfect right there. That's genius." So, and that's essentially, just so you know, that's how the original 15 Swarovskis. That's how they were created. They were created off the 8x56 body. They already had the body.
I didn't know that.
Swarovski didn't have a clue. The guys from Arizona had to go down there and
Tell him.
basically took him out in the field and said, "Here's 1560s ice, and here's now stand there in glass with your stuff, and we're going to show you." And they kept deer, and that's how it happened.
Yeah. I remember when this SLC 1556s came out. Talk about like taking over the industry.
100%.
It was unbelievable.
So that, and it's tough to say which binocular, which tripod. I just think that collectively the tripod has had, because it's allowed people with 8s, 10s, 12s, 12s didn't come along until, I don't know, early 2000s, not so much. They were there, but did not barely. But yeah, I think the tripod really affected and his state, because I think it allows every person, no matter what glass you have. Because the pillars that I always tell people, buy the best glass you can afford. And by the way, I'm not telling you that you have to, buy a blister pack something off of Walmart's wall, and that all of a sudden now you're supposed to go buy a $3,000 something. That's not what I mean by that. Buy the best glass you can, put it on a tripod, slow down. And so I think that tripod has just allowed people to do more stuff and see more game than any one thing. Because even if I could only afford, a $300 piece of glass, I'm going to find more game with it on a tripod than not.
Yeah.
So I just think it's easy.
The tripod's changed it for me. I shake pretty bad.
Right.
And I have a replaced left shoulder. So like anytime just the handheld binocular, like it's always bothered me. I always shake. And I sound like an old person with a lot of issues here. But I get nauseous like really easy. I've always gotten nauseous very, very easy. So the shake in the bino is always like, I don't like looking through it handheld for me. Yep. So I am exclusive off a tripod. Like even on Porter's third season Colorado hunt, when we're like still hunting through these little sage basins. I mean, everywhere you roll kind of where we were hunting, we were always in shooting range, right? And it was always like, if you come over the ridge, something's going to be within 300-400 yards. I'm exclusively only on a tripod.
So you're basically carrying your tripod to be ready right when you get up on a little knoll, set glass it really quickly with your tripod.
Correct. And from like the amount that I shake, I'm going to miss anything anyways. And I know that about myself. Like if I try to rush it, I know I'm not the best.
Have you tried the SIG yet? The Zulu
no,
6s?
No, but
hey, look,
we've been talking.
And Brady, look, these are these ideas that I personally would go, I'm not doing that.
Yeah, I remember our conversations, Cody.
Yeah. And by the way, I've looked at those. A friend of my brother's, Tony, he was like, "Hey, have you ever looked through these?" And I did. And those back in the day were, let's just say they weren't as good as they are now. Mm-hmm. Okay. The idea now, I'm like, okay, man, those things really do the trick.
Yep.
And so I will tell you that I've had grown men get emotional because they didn't know about tripods and glassing that have like beginning stages of Parkinson's. Mm-hmm. Some guys are just jittery to begin with.
That's me.
There's a couple guys that I know that have used the Zulu 6s now because you have the conversation and be like, hey, this is something that you need to look into. I know you're dealing with this, and it's virtually changed their life.
Yeah. I can see how that works because, like, for me, like, I'll get ahead of myself and rush it. Like you're talking about slow down. I always have to tell myself that. And then I know, like, I'm going to get motion sick looking through it. So then I exponentially rush it. You know what I mean? So when he started going down the Zulu 6 path, I'm like, oh, buddy, this could be my this could be my dark timber elk, running those sage bowls kind of.
I'm just telling you that I'm saying this, Brady, on live. This is being recorded. It was it's those moments where you go, he's kind of got a point. Like maybe I ought to revisit this. And what did we do? We went and got you one.
Yep.
And we figured out that we're kind of missing the boat. And yeah, I think we're going to do really well with that.
Yeah, I'm like,
and there's good stuff, and
Yep.
Soon enough.
Yep.
Right.
But most know that I've been addicted to those for quite a while. I've used them off and on quite a few hunts. Now, actually, my brother, who I was talking about earlier from Minnesota, who ran that one hunt, he saw me using those. He basically stole them from me the entire hunt. And he's like, "You're not getting these back." I'm like, "All right, well, I had my 12s with me as well. I had the 12s and I had the 10s, 10 Zulu 6s. And after we got done with that hunt, he's like, "I'm buying them." He went out and bought them. He uses them all the time right now. He's addicted to them. I've shown more people it. And like Lorenzo was saying earlier too about maybe jittery or all that, but like when I'm hand holding stuff too, I start feeling my heartbeat. I can literally feel my heartbeat.
You can see it.
It moves your binos up and down when you're glassing. And so that's why like on that tripod, it works really well. But sometimes when my style of hunting, I'm hauling ass up a mountain, trying to look what's on the other side. And quickly I'm like, okay, I could sit down. My heart's already racing. With those Zulus, flip that switch. I can glass while I'm standing up, while I'm sweating, while I'm breathing really hard. And I can pick apart the terrain really quickly as I'm looking around to make sure there's nothing trying to run away from me.
Yeah.
Or like in Tajikistan, that's why I specifically brought those binos, because I knew it was going to be super windy. All those situations we're sitting there, like, sure, I could probably glass out a tripod, but the tripod's going to be moving so much. It was literally 30 plus mile an hour wind.
And the thing is that you, like, I had to get over, first of all, there's been other gyro things out there.
Yeah, there's been some before.
And that don't always, I'm trying to say this correctly, that if they're not cared for properly, they can break.
Yeah.
Okay? Let's just leave it at that, right?
Mm-hmm.
But these are battery operated.
Yep.
And then you're thinking, well, now I got to carry more battery, but the pros completely outweigh the cons.
Yep. I was letting the guides in Tajikistan use my binos, and they almost wanted to steal them from me as well. They're like, wow, these are amazing.
I'm sure.
When you're hunting those sheep up there where it's literally windy every single day, and you can flip that switch and cuts all that wind, like we can even glass. I've even done it. Well, my dad was driving down the road in Montana, like a little 2-track. I can pull those binos up. I can glass while we're moving. Or like we're talking about guys going to go on a spring bear hunt in Alaska from a boat. Or
I was going to say boats. Have you guys ever been just driving down the road and I always think this is interesting that you find something and you've got the engine on and you're glassing and you can feel the vibration, but as soon as you turn the engine off and it gets quiet, things get nervous.
Yeah.
So keep the engine on. But I was just thinking, like, even if you're going to drive around and just look at elk or animals or whatever you're doing, just the guy that's on a quad or ATV, whatever, it completely mitigates the shaking or the vibration that you're getting off the engine.
And what Brady was just talking about, like that heartbeat, that's what makes me the most nauseous. Is like you're moving. Do
you ever see the rolling ball effect? Do you ever get that?
What's that?
Well,
coming from the glassing guru, what exactly is that?
Sounds pretty intense right now.
I'm sure I have, but what is it?
And I'm sure there's going to be way better explanations, but sometimes rolling ball effect almost gets like where you can see the image, but everything around it is almost like it's spinning and moving.
Yes.
Okay,
that's where I get messed up.
It's called they call it the rolling ball effect. I've only experienced it one time on one piece of glass. I'm not going to say what that piece of glass was because I've never had anybody else tell me they've gotten it off of that. I would tell you, like, I get seasick, car sick if I'm equilibrium deficient like
That's
that.
me.
So I have that issue sometimes. Very interesting to where I was. I was on a very high peak looking down into a basin. We were chasing this, 108 to 110 inch coos buck. And I put the glasses on there. I'd never field tested them. And I put the glasses on there and literally like had to go to my knees because I was on a rock. Mm-hmm. I had to back away and thank God the truck was at least, I literally was almost out of it for about 2 hours. Like I wanted to physically throw up. It was bad enough. So I can identify with that, but I've only ever had it happen that one time.
Yeah.
So, but that it's something to do with just like when you're moving, I always think of like just, it's like this image and everything else is spinning around it.
Yeah.
And I
know exactly what you're talking about.
I can't get it to stop.
I know exactly
So what'd you call this? Rolling?
It's called the rolling ball effect.
Now I'm going to sound way smarter when I talk about this.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And instantly in my head, I was thinking Miley Cyrus wrecking ball.
Here it is right here.
That's just my
Cody
thoughts.
just pulled it up. The
Yeah.
globe effect, sometimes called the rolling ball effect,
Yep.
or the spinning globe effect,
Yep.
is an optical phenomenon, partially an optical illusion that occurs with visual optical instruments.
It's almost like
Particular binoculars, yeah.
But it's almost like, if you guys ever been in a car and you've got the brake on, but the car next to you moves, but you feel like you're moving
backwards.
It's kind of the
time.
same thing, and I wish I could. Some people do it on like the EL ranges. I've had a few people say, like on the 10x54 victories. I think it has something to do with the field flattener and the lenses. But some people get it and some people don't. I would tell you that on those, the majority of people don't have that problem. But there's a few people that, for whatever reason, they're susceptible to it.
I'm actually really interested. Do you get feedback on people being nauseous through glass? Like, is that a thing?
100%.
Yeah, because I genuinely get it really bad. Like, I struggle with equilibrium distortion already. I have this thing, so I struggle with it already. I can get motion sick, seasick like really quick. But I can feel it coming on, and so I'll back out of the glass. Like how it hits you immediately and you drop to a knee. I can feel it coming on. If I were to keep going, I would get to that point.
Okay.
But I find myself having to back out of glass a lot to get away from that.
I'm going to ask you a couple questions. One, is it a certain kind of glass that does it? And I'm trying not to single any manufacturers or anything out, or even economical versus like having the best glass. I would tell you that I think. So for instance, there is a piece of glass out there that I can look through, and that I physically, no matter what I do, tripod, hand holding, anything, I cannot get it to focus. And if I look through that any more than 2 or 3 minutes, I would tell you that I don't ever get headaches. And I feel like I want to split my own skull open and stir my brain around and get it figured out, because it's that irritating. I have a lot of people that will call and say, hey, Cody, I was using this glass. I tried to do this. I was on a tripod, and I just can't. It gives me a headache. I would tell you that typically there's a couple things going on. A, maybe you're not as focused as good as you could be.
Yeah.
B, you could be out of collimation.
Which is?
So the tubes of the binoculars are aligned. So they're collimated so that they, I guess at a certain point they cross, and that's why you get that circle, right? Mm-hmm. So when one tube is up or down or split, if you ever look at a piece of glass that maybe it just doesn't feel like it's focused right away, it can be so slight that you can maybe work on the focus and it makes it better, but it doesn't make it perfect. So I'm not suggesting that that's what it is, but I've had guys I had a hunting partner that literally was telling me like, hey man, like my glasses, and he looked through mine, he goes, oh man, I can see that deer right there. Yeah. And I looked through his glass, I'm like, bud, are you okay? And he's like, what? And I go, they're not a lot. This is out of collimation, like horribly out of collimation. He's like, no, I've been using these for a while. I'm like, oh, like that's not good. So there's that situation. I'm going to ask, does that happen with the best of the best glass?
Yeah, it happens. So for me, like I'm super fortunate, and obviously we have GOHUNT, so I'm using Swarovski mainly.
Okay.
Right? I'm trying to get the most out of the glass that I'm taking for the weight that I'm carrying. So for like, it could be that, what'd you call it? Collimation thing?
Collimation.
Yeah. So so what I had, it's called Meniere's disease. Is it's an inner ear degenerative malfunction of your inner equilibrium.
Right.
And the side effect is, what do you call it when like you don't know which way? What's that called?
I'm
drawing a blank. Vertigo.
Vertigo.
So
Yeah. Gotcha.
So like that's what comes to you is just vertigo out of nowhere. And so like it could be that, because I don't know if my wife notices it all the time. She always tells me I'm crooked. Like I always hold my head to the side. So I'm trying to fix like the horizon tilt for my inner ear.
No kidding.
So like, yeah. So people,
this is fascinating to me because
not that anyone's supposed to care about the shit I got, but
I
hold my head tilted.
But that's an interesting thing because, because if someone comes to me and says, "Hey, I got a splitting headache and I'm using this," I will tell you a lot of times when they buy better glass that allows them to focus better, in more detail. I think that helps. There are certain things that I don't know that'll solve. Man, that's really interesting though.
It definitely could. So when you said that, it definitely could be that, because I'm crooked already. So they're probably out of alignment to match my, like, because I'm trying to fix the horizon line. That's what I'm trying to fix visually, like to help my equilibrium.
So what you should do is take somebody else
and look
or two or three people and say, you guys look at these and tell me if they're in focus.
Which I've never done.
So you can also take there's a couple of different ways to do it, but you could take a house that's, because generally speaking, the house is going to be level, right?
Yeah.
So if you take on a tripod and you got the let's just say you were on a tripod and you had like half the screen or half your view was on the roof line, half wasn't, and when you go to back away, like pull your head away from the binos, you'll see if one tube you'll see it.
See it tilt?
Yep. And then you can also do that off a straight line, like on the, I don't know, use like a side of a house or a barn or something that is plumb, and you can do it that way too. So, but yeah, I would certainly look at that stuff. That's really interesting.
Yeah. So that's why I get nauseous through why I think I get nauseous.
I can't ride in the back of a car.
Yeah,
I can't ride.
Yeah.
I mean, if I go in open sea, I'll throw up the entire time.
I don't drive.
So here's
with other
something else
people.
that's okay. What magnification of the binoc? What most of the time when you do this, when is it? Is it on the high power or the low power?
Honestly, I haven't paid enough. It's something I just have dealt with.
Right.
You know what I mean? And like in high school, is when it was hitting me. So I've dealt with it. So
I would be curious to know.
Yeah.
Because the first time I ever got seasick as a kid, I was down in the bottom of my grandfather's giant boat, whatever, and they're fishing off the back, and I'm down in the cabin, and they're like, "Get out of the cabin!" I'm looking out like a little porthole, and and I see this just waves, and I'm like, "Oh my god!" And I'm throwing up off the side of the boat like a chumming in, the whole thing,
the whole deal.
Oh,
fishing was probably better.
It was awful.
Yeah, definitely was.
But I remember one of the old guys pulled me aside and he says, "Son," he says, "look," he says, "we're going to turn the boat and orientate a little better for you, but I want you to look at the horizon." Mm-hmm. And he says, "I don't want you to pick a spot on the horizon. I just want you to sit back." And when he did that, right, it made it a lot easier for me and I got calm and it was a much better second half of the trip. I'm like, could anybody not have told me this in the first half? But that being said, I think that sometimes when people use, I will tell you that when people use higher magnification binoculars and the field of view is narrower, that's not uncommon for people to have that issue. They almost feel like claustrophobic, or they get that. And when they get to like a 12 or a 10 or an 8, now they can kind of see the whole thing, and it kind of gives them, and I'm sure there's a doctor that would really be able to explain this much more articulately to do that, but it just gives them that presence of mind and that awareness and lets their brain process it.
Makes total sense. I'm using 12s now, those 12
Sure.
ELs. Or those NL Pures 12s,
Oh,
right?
okay.
Isn't that
Yeah,
what they
and
are?
that's as wide a field as, it's a
Yeah.
299-foot field of view that you're going to get. That's just amazing for, or I'm sorry, 300. Yeah, but it's as wide as any 12 that's out there. So
Yeah.
So I think
So
it's
I've never
339.
like paid attention to like the individual thing.
Yeah.
But that's what I do is I'll back out of the glass, turn around and look at the horizon line, and then just kind of get, 2, 3, 5 minutes, and then I'll get back in the glass.
If I get off a plane, it takes me about 6 hours to get where I can
Back,
Like
yeah.
I gotta have I'm that guy at 6 a.m. that that comedian that talks about, there's that one guy in the plane that's got to have the window open at 6 a.m.
Yeah.
on a
That's
red
you.
eye or a flight. That's me. I gotta feel that.
Me too.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, I've never really like asked you about it or talked about it, but it's a super common thing I get nauseous.
Well, it
to
makes me
glass.
want to ask some guys that maybe there's something out there that that can help. Or
Well, my head went exactly to the SIG Zulu 6s.
yeah.
The other thing I can't believe Cody's got them pulled up is when I saw the price point on them, I'm like, what?
The price point's
Yeah.
pretty reasonable.
It's super reasonable for what it is.
They're
It's like unbelievable.
and there's good things coming. So
So I'm going to try these this year.
more choice.
I'm gonna
Let's
try
just
these
leave it
this
at
year.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can we jump back to? I want to jump back
100%.
on these the tripod discussion.
Isn't it great how Brady always kind of
Oh, yeah.
I wanted you guys to go
reels
because
us
that was
back in?
that was a gold conversation. I think a lot of people can get some good value off it.
I'm genuinely interested to know like how many people struggle with being nauseous enough that they have to back out. I don't know if I'm like,
Yeah. I don't know.
Be
Like
interesting.
I've just had, I've sold binoculars obviously now for a lot of years, and you ask a guy and he says, "Well, have you tried these?" And he's like, "Yep, I tried those." Well, what do they do to you? He's like, "I have a ridiculously bad headache by the time I'm done glassing with them." Like,
Yeah.
okay, well, don't do that.
yeah.
So have you tried these, or have you tried, like here's mine. Go take these out for a morning and tell me what you think.
Yeah.
Problem solved. Here's my check or my credit card, and here you go.
All right, Brady, you can have it back.
Sorry.
Okay.
But I'm asking for comments. Just I want to see how
yeah.
odd I am.
I'd also love to eventually us maybe have a full conversation on the Zulu 6s. We can dive in a little deeper on it because, like I said, they've excited me for a long time. I think they're a phenomenal piece of glass.
Yeah, they're
And
amazing.
what you can do with them. But I want to jump back and talk about our tripod discussion, how you said tripod is one of the most influential things to optics in the last 20 years. So when you're talking about a tripod, what kind of features do you look at when you're talking about a tripod? Like leg diameter, number of legs, twist lock, flip locks, center column, and maybe some glassing tips around it. I know it's a lot at once, but what do you look for?
I mean,
for a
first
tripod?
and foremost, I'm looking for something that kind of matches the optics. I think that's the most basic thing that you can say is like if you're using a BTX and a 115, the smallest tripod's not going to be. So I'm always looking, okay, these are the optics I'm using. And I typically tell people I run like a two system. I normally have one that's a little bit leaning towards the heavier and more stability, and with a bigger head that handles more weight. And then I also have one that is almost always in my pack that's ready to go. That's a little bit lighter weight, and I can get by and I feel comfortable with.
Yep.
But generally speaking, I don't ever go crazy lightweight because I'm anal retentive, obsessive compulsive about my glass, and I want stability. And it just the way I'm done like that. I used to like flip locks. So I kind of look at flip locks, twist locks, because people tend to think that flip locks are easier to deploy,
Chris Porter.
right? 100%.
Straight call out. Yes. he
Yeah,
is.
that was
The only guy I know who.
and Porter, I got options coming, I promise. But that's the thing is I look at flip locks versus twist locks. I look at carbon fiber versus aluminum.
Pros cons quick at carbon fiber.
No, absolutely.
So I just want to miss that
okay,
point.
so flip locks. Flip locks, certainly easier to deploy, easier to put back and compact, right? Problem with them is the biggest gripe I have, pet peeve, is that number one, they get caught in every strap I have on my backpack.
Yep.
And guys, I will bet you that most flip locks that break get broke because they go to jerk them out of the pack and it completely breaks that and flips it off. So that's number one. I think that flip locks need to be cleaned more often, because we all know we're out there in the dust, dirt, whatever, and they just need to be taken care of and maintained.
But one point right there, how many people do you know who actually think to clean your tripod?
I having worked at a counter and to have people come in, and the things that I've seen come out of or off of tripods, it's disgusting.
Yeah, they should be a piece of gear that you take care of.
Take an air compressor, canned air, nylon brush, do something. Nylon brush and blow on it. That would be a great start.
Yep.
But how about just putting that in a sleeve on the side of your pack, or there's lots of ways to combat that. So I just would tell you, maintain it the best you can.
Yep. Straight call out again. Porter definitely doesn't clean it.
No.
So flip locks, easier to deploy. Flip locks, I've never met a flip lock that at some point in its life that does not squeak.
Yep. The squeak, and you always
Again,
have to.
The cleaning thing.
You always are
gotta
constantly
clean it.
adjusting them too. You have to tighten them, and
Because here's the truth, and you experienced the J. Scott. If you want to drive him nuts, you go sit on a mound with him, and you do something that makes noise. You know you've got a buck, 2, 3, 4, 500, whatever it is, and you start cranking on flip locks that, I mean, he just wants to come out of his skin. And I love Jay to death like a brother. But that noise factor,
it always squeaks.
We just don't realize what we're scaring off that we don't know. So I would tell you that, you got to keep him clean.
Yeah, talk about an unnatural sound in the wild.
Oh.
The sound of metal.
100%.
And even if you don't realize, you're like, oh, it's not that loud of a noise. But what if you're there that makes that squeak noise? You spook a flock of birds that are nesting in a tree behind you. Those birds fly up. Deer turns around, looks, oh, now I see you moving, and now I'm gone.
Yep.
Like the deer might not hear it, but something else does and spooks and causes that deer to be alert.
So that's kind of the flip lock side.
Yep.
Twist locks are not for the uncoordinated. Practice with them. I don't care if you're watching football. Open them up, put them back together. I can do it with just a quarter turn of each deal and put them up, put it back. It's not, just practice with it. It's not hard. But what I find guys doing is they open it up and they keep twisting it, and all of a sudden they've got one tripod or one leg in their hand and one over here, and it's
Chris Neville.
And Chris Porter.
I'll keep going all day. Neville has lost so many legs off his twist locks because he twists them too far.
So when you do that, there's two little shims in there that if they come out, you're going to have to find them.
Yeah. That's why Porter doesn't like the twist.
Yeah.
Is he over twists them, and then next thing you know.
It's common, and it's not alone. And I used to think that, and I've done it myself, but when I did it that time, I've never done it since.
Yeah.
Because I just know what I need to do. So, and again, it's practice, open, close. The thing the next thing is that the twist locks don't get stuck on packs near as much.
Slide in and out of the pack.
Slide in and out, piece of cake, easy peasy, right? The best thing about them is they don't squeak.
Mm-hmm.
They're self-clean, or I shouldn't say they're self-cleaning. They're basically preventative maintenance on themselves because they're open or they're closed. Well, they're not open. They're only open when you set. But you got to close them to hold the leg where you want it. So they're not getting pelted with the dust right into those threads, so they don't make all that noise. So I think those are important things to think about.
The big thing to me is speed. I can literally, if I know I have 3 knobs right there, I can grab them with my hand.
Yep.
Yes, I have bigger hands than a lot. I can grab them,
Yep.
twist them all at once, and then slide my hand down. I'm pulling out all the legs at once, and then I just run back up, tighten, and that leg's on, go around. It's super fast.
It's just becoming familiar with your gear. Mm-hmm. And so guys, I don't know, I'm constantly messing with that stuff all the time. So I think when guys pay attention to what they're doing.
Yeah. So when it comes down to both of them though, there's options why you might want flips or twist locks, and they both work. Yep. At the end of the day, they do work, but you're going to have these little things to think about.
A lot of my heavier tripods, like the 055s or the bigger tripods, it's not as big a deal because I'm probably not
long distance glassing.
Yeah, I'm long distance glassing, maybe around the truck more. You're hiking out onto a little ledge or whatever, but it's not, the noise isn't a factor, and it, it's just not as big a deal to me. But so you always want your legs to be so that you can articulate the leg angle. If you're sitting on a 45-degree hill, your front leg may be straight up, and your other, your two side legs are at a different angle. So you always want that to be, pretty free flowing, if you will, and adjustable. You just take the 3 body sizes right here. Well, in order to get close to your glass, if you just keep them in the regular position, well, it may not allow you to get close enough, and so. You're broad enough to the shoulders that, you probably have to spread them out a little bit and get in behind them. And Brady probably doesn't have that problem as much.
Brady doesn't have much of the same problems as me.
Yeah.
And I want you to touch on something that I feel like you were going to jump into here in a second, is which legs should you extend when you're glassing when you don't need to use all your legs? I see it a lot, and I don't think
pet peeves.
I don't think people realize the legs are very important. Which ones you want to deploy?
So I always my biggest pet peeve is when someone's glassing, and well, first of all, my biggest pet peeve is standing. I hate standing.
Yeah.
And I think, and by the way, I'll say this now to all the guys that I talk to and whatnot. I think sometimes it's because of the animal that I hunt, mostly. Because I think when you're coos deer hunting, to be standing up on a ridge or just walking around, looking here and looking there, I don't think it allows you to do it as much as just sitting down and getting off the edge. I'm that person that's like, don't skyline yourself, don't, So I think there's a lot to go in there, mm-hmm. But I think what you're getting at is that when people sit down and they go to extend the leg, they extend from the very bottom leg first.
The skinny one.
Yeah, the skinny one. So now you got all this leg and all this weight on the essentially the weakest.
Yep, it's the leg that has the smallest diameter.
Right, exactly. And it's my biggest pet peeve. I would rather take that first leg length and then drop down the middle leg first to get that to where I want it, and then adjust from there.
Yep. You want to use your heaviest legs to help aid in stability.
Right. I personally, I don't know that I have one tripod that has 5 leg lengths in the system. The more lengths you have, the weaker that leg is. So I prefer 3, but 4 is pretty common. And so when the difference is that when you have 5 leg lengths, it allows it to get super compact. Mm-hmm. But then you have to extend all those legs when you want it to get, back to the normal, the tallest height. So I would tell you that my optimum tripod is 3 leg lengths, and I'm able to sit down and I can extend just the middle portion down maybe 2 or 3 inches, and I can sit behind that comfortably, and that's a rock solid, steady. I think I like tripods that have a smaller circumference so that you can pretty much put them in any side pocket or any, within your strap system or your compression straps. I would tell you that most of my leg diameters are middle to, heavy, and only the lightest ones are going to be smaller. So I think that's a quality or just what you want to look for. Mm-hmm. But I've seen guys have tripods with these giant fat tubes on them, and I'm like, well, I get it.
Yeah.
But for me, those would be the heavier tripods, not the lighter ones.
Let's get into the center column. We're leaving one specific piece out.
Yeah, there's
strategy on the center column.
The center column, as of lately, has become a thing, and I call it shooting tripods versus glassing tripods. Now, I know everybody's going to talk about it. There are tripods out there that are meant more for guys shooting long range, PRS, NRL matches. They typically have ball heads. I try not to extend my center post, but when you're in situations in the contour of the mountain or wherever you're sitting, sometimes you just need, because you want to get a different angle, or you're sitting up straight, or you just want to pull it up by enough, or just get that little extra piece out of it. You got to have a center post. I personally don't have a tripod that I use all the time that doesn't have a center column. I think that they're just a necessary glassing tool.
The one
But
question,
to always have it extended the least amount.
100%.
Yeah.
I think that's you try. Like, I want the legs to do the work, not necessarily the tripod, because typically speaking, if you take a tripod and you put the legs out and you grab the center post and you kind of wiggle it, you'll figure out that center post is the weakest link in the whole tripod. So I try not to extend it by very much. Lucky I'm 5'6.5", and I can, if I have to stand, but if I'm standing, I'm normally standing with a bigger tripod. Mm-hmm. And the whole point of that for me is I can do that by keeping the center post locked into the trundle, or the base. Mm-hmm. Yep. So, but to learn, that's a great point, because that's, I don't know. There's so much going on right now with people using tripods that are, and I just ask people, I'm like, okay, well, what's your first and foremost? And again, it kind of comes back to that, like, forgetting your optics versus your rifle thing. Well, I'm a glasser first and a shooter second. Some people think I'm crazy. It's my hunt, my way of doing it, and I am always worried about glassing and finding first.
Yep.
Doesn't mean I don't take my rifle and shooting and all that serious. It just means that my first thing is, like, I want to be able to glass in comfort and glass how I want to glass and reduce eye fatigue, and I want to do that as efficiently as possible.
Yep. And speaking of the center post, so while I'm on social media, sometimes I see when either I share a photo or I see someone else shares a photo of their binoculars mounted on a tripod, that center post will be up. And I read through some of those comments. I always see comments, people like, oh, you can never do that. That's the worst thing to do. Like, I do believe, yes, you do sacrifice a little bit of stability if you crank that thing all the way. Like, most of those can go 12, 13 inches or whatever. So if you're doing that at 13 inches, yes, it's probably going to make it a little bit wobbly, and you should, like you said, use those legs to bring that up. But there's times, like you did mention earlier, and that's why I want to talk about this, is what the mountain deals you. You might have to do something different during that certain situation. And keep in mind, that person who you saw their photo and you're reaming about, oh, that's not the correct way to glass. Well, in that situation, at that moment, it might have been, because again, we don't know if that person was doing long distance glassing or close distance glassing. So when I'm trying to look at something that might be a little closer range, and I just need to prop that up really quickly to get, like, down below to look at something, I might have that thing up there for just a little short period of time, and then you're moving it down. It's something that I feel like, it's movable. So it's the quickest thing for me to move is the center column up and down rather than adjusting the legs. And I want to be like, what's that buck's moving? Oh, I need to adjust that center column really quickly and move it. And that situation's okay. But I don't feel like you should have it extended for long periods of time, because you are sacrificing.
I just want something that gets me into whatever comfortable position that I want to for that given
whatever the mountain's going to give you.
And to minimize the movement. That's what I want.
Yep. And I always will say, too, if you're going to use it, make sure you lock that sucker down. Take that little tension knob, lock it down super tight. And I always set my tripod up the exact same way like you're setting, like the 2 legs and 1 leg forward or whatever, depending on the situation. Yeah. But then I always have that knob on my left side. because then I'm glassing with my right, except with my right hand on it, I can constantly be adjusting things up and down. I know where they're at. I'm not like, oh, where's that knob?
I
Is
normally,
in the front or in the back?
I normally glass with my left, so that knob's always, I can kind of.
I think it just comes down to again, that practice, like we're constantly talking about.
100%.
Take things out, practice them, know your system. And that's why when I set it down, I know how to do it when situations arise where I need to be quick.
I would tell you one of the biggest pieces of advice I have for any person that is new to this and, not done very much class. Please, for the love of God, just go out back in your patio and pick a tree 50 yards away.
So you're saying be that creeper who's glassing your neighbors?
Down. Well, no, I didn't say look over the fence.
Okay.
I just said look at a tree.
Not from your
if
upstairs
there's
balcony?
something else going on in the tree that I need to know about, I'm, whatever. But I'm just telling people to spend time with the gear and practice with it.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Because I will tell you that over the years, the stuff that gets returned the most, not always, but a lot of the times, I know when a guy has really tried his equipment. Oh, this didn't work for me. Well, did you? No. Well, no, I did. Well, no, and I'm like, it's so much easier if you literally test the gear.
Yep. Test it out and use it.
Take it out in the backyard. Keep it on concrete. Don't scratch the feet up. And so in case it doesn't work for you, you can return it and we can get you something that does work.
Yep.
So that's the whole thing is that guys just need to, I told the guy the other day, I'm like, well, okay, if that doesn't work for you, go home, pack your whole pack like you're going to pack it, put everything in there. And if that piece doesn't work, let me know and send it back and we'll get you a piece that does work.
Yep.
He's like, well, nobody else will do that. We will.
Yeah.
That's the whole point of this.
Mm-hmm.
So we've talked about it on podcast a couple times about just having your system. Like you got to have on all your gear, you got to have a system. I mean, I know doing extra work sucks, but like you just invested in all this stuff. Well, have a system with it. Like know what you're doing with it, what its purpose is.
Well, do you guys have those guys, or are you those guys that you're sitting there glassing on the mountain and you're like, oh man, I wish I had and the guy just goes like this, reaches back and goes, here.
Yeah. The way I set my pack when I'm glassing, I know exactly where things are at.
He knows where everything is at, every pocket, everything. He's not looking for anything.
Yeah. So as we're moving, I want to keep moving up the tripod system.
Yep.
So we talked about legs, we talked about twist, flip locks, center column. So as we go up the center column, we have either.
Let's hit just real quick. Aluminum versus.
Okay. Yep. We can do aluminum versus carbon.
Carbon fiber. I would just tell guys that there's different carbon fibers out there. There's 6-layer, 8-layer, 9-layer. I mean, there's all kinds of different things. Some carbon fibers created better than others. Generally, that's reflected in the prices, to be perfectly honest with you. I think there's overkill. And I think that, carbon fiber is good. I think it has a dampening quality to it. I think the legs are stiff enough that they do a good job with holding optics. Most of what I use now is carbon fiber. 10 years ago, 20 years ago, carbon fiber was like the oddball. It just wasn't out there yet.
Yep.
Aluminum's noisy. Aluminum's cold.
I will definitely say it's cold.
I just would tell you that zippers, I mean, again, Chase got the zippers, some guy whips his jacket and that zipper hits the aluminum. Yeah, that's an unnatural sound, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it's, and quite frankly, aluminum's heavier. Tube for tube, typically it's heavier.
Yep.
So, yeah, I mean, I just, almost everything I do now is carbon fiber.
Yep. And the one caveat I have there is, so I'm the same thing. I love the carbon fiber for tripod legs, but I do own that Suru, I guess you would actually, Suru, my bad. I have the glassing girl, I got to pronounce it correctly. I have the 004 SK, and that's aluminum, but it's still a very, very lightweight tripod.
And that,
because
so
built for a
this needs to
specific
be
reason.
said about tripods. So you guys have heard the 4 pillars, right? or the 3 pillars. So you've got the buy the good glass, put it on tripods, slow down, be methodical, right? But really, any tripod is better than no tripod. I don't care. At the end of the day, if you can keep your glass more still than it was when you're hand holding it, you're better.
Yep.
So I would tell a guy that, look, if what you can do is a T004 SK with a VA5 head that is $189 and you're going to get points on that, and they're probably doing a rebate, on it, why not?
Why not? Yep.
That's better than nothing. I will take a tripod over nothing any day of the week.
And then you look at the price point of that too. The VA5 head by itself.
Well, 100%.
Like you're almost getting the legs for free.
You basically.
Yeah.
And by the way, when I say that about those legs, you take the head off of there and you play with those legs. Those legs are not. I've had worse tripods, way worse tripods. So I would tell you that from where that tripod is now at $189 to where some of the first tripods I had that were lightweight, well, I'd take the T004 in a heartbeat, aluminum or not.
Yep. So aluminum carbon.
I mean, I go back into the days when the Coleman, CULLMAN, was like a pound, but you couldn't articulate the legs, and it was like this little tiny ball head on it. It was, I mean, I have 2 of them, and they still make them, but they're they're just too light.
Yep.
So, and not enough. They're not as adjustable. So why would you do that to yourself?
Yep.
But if I had to have something and I had nothing, they're perfect.
So then as we move up, now we have either pan head or ball head. Give me the pros and cons.
I'm always taking under 99.9% of the circumstances for me, I'm taking a pan head.
Yep. Because of
well, there's a couple things. The fluidity of the pan head for me, I like having the handle or the option of having a handle. Some guys take their handles off. You can, right else creating some handles that are lightweight and taking some ounces off if you're an ounce counter. But I love the fluidity of it. I love the weight that they generally will, hold more, if you will. Now, there are some ball heads out there that game has gone a long way in another direction, a good direction. But it's just, I think if you're going to be a shooter and you want that ability to mount your rifle and you want the ability to have the rifle suspended on that piece, I think a ball head makes a lot of sense. But again, I come back to the thing, I'm a glasser first, shooter second.
Yep.
So I go with what, I feel is going to help me find game faster, more efficiently.
Let me ask the shooter Brady a question. Would you ever shoot off of a ball head, or have you?
No.
You wouldn't?
I will not. Because to me, it depends. If you have a specific tripod that has the ball head and it's mounted really low, like I can't remember what the Vortex one I shoot off that one quite a bit. Yeah, that one's okay because it's just really low, but some of these more hunter glassing ones where they actually have the ball, they have knobs on top, it sits a little taller. And to me, that's more stuff that's moving around. It's harder to kind of lock it in. Where that pan, it's just, I don't know the right word. It's bigger, seems more stout to me. I can really lock it in. I can point it exactly where I want. I can get it kind of set up first. I know it's oh shoot, now the ball head, I loosened it up. Now the ball head's going to fall over the side on me. I'm not going to have that with the pan head.
Yeah.
So I will not use one if I have to. I don't like glassing with it.
Look, you can spend $600, $800, $900 on the highest end quality ball heads that are out there, and there's some phenomenal stuff. Don't get me wrong. But I think for what we're talking about, the ball heads that are out there today, there's some good ones.
Yeah.
The Serray ones are great for what we do with them. I have shot off them before. I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I'm just saying it's not my way. But I still help people purchase them and buy them for doing that.
Brady, have you ever shot an animal off in a hunting situation off the tripod?
Nope, never shot an animal. I practice with it on the field. I feel
Just
like I'm
case.
very comfortable, 600 yards. I can literally rock it all day, but I've never had the point. But I do have that ability. And that's why I added the full ARCA rail on the bottom of my rifle, so I can just slide
Just
it
in
onto an
case.
ARCA and I can take a
Okay,
shot.
Yeah,
I was
So
trying
if
to
I get in a
think if you had-
situation, like bear hunting is one of those things where I think a tripod's gonna be very useful, because those situations where you might be glassing on a steep slope, bears across a ridge, you don't have anywhere to lay down, and you try to run up the mountain. Okay, now you're adding distance. You try to get closer. Well, the terrain might not be conducive to get closer. So you have a tripod, you can position that up. You can literally lay on it. You can grab on that tripod a proper way, and you can touch off, perfect shot on it. So I think I have it. And if I had to get in a situation where I need to use it, I would use it.
That's why you practice it.
That's
That
why I
makes
practice
sense.
it.
Yeah.
I was trying to think. I can't remember you ever shooting.
Nope,
on a tripod.
never have.
And I would tell you that I think guys have to just be. I always want to go prone first.
Exactly.
Like I want to get as low and
Watch out. The internet tore me up about that before.
Well, but and that's okay. Look,
It'll
but
tear
see-
you up about
but-
anything.
you
but
can
that-
shoot a million different
but-
ways. I'm like,
see,
yeah, you
but
can.
that's
But
just the thing is that we got to get over this. Like a lot of people do a lot of things a long time and doing really well with it. So I like prone. If I can shoot prone, I'll shoot prone. If I can, I'm just always trying to lower the, like I always remember there was a situation with a friend of mine and people are trying to set tripods and rear rests and all this stuff up. And the whole time I'm watching this thing like I'm watching TV through a set of 50 or a 32 power Koas. And and I'm not gonna lie, I get on the radio and I call my buddy who's sitting next to the guy. I go, he does realize there's a 1,000-pound rock right next to him that's flat. And there was just radio silence.
oh shoot.
And
okay.
I'm just like I couldn't help but like I'm waiting for shots to ring out and like no one's doing anything. I'm like, there's a boulder. You're right. I mean, it was as big as this table.
Yep.
Just get on top of it. I mean, you could lean into it, and he had a bipod.
Yep.
I mean, that's the way no. And look, I just and some of that is we get flustered when things start happening, and I get it, but I think guys just need to think out how they want. I used to be not a big fan of the tripod thing, and Cade Smith from Triclops, I've had this conversation with him. Cody, what don't, and I'm like, well, because I just thought that I was trying to do things different, but I had to listen. And then when I started getting my kids to shoot off of it,
Yep. That's a game
they
changer.
can shoot like ridiculous yardages off of a Triclops and a tripod. So, I'm not doing it so they can fire 1,000 yards. I'm doing it so they can fire 200 or 300 yards really, really solid. That's what I want out of that.
Yep. I feel it's really big for antelope hunting. Like,
Yeah.
Like there's so many times where you're stalking an antelope with a rifle, sagebrush is in the way, you can't lay prone.
Yeah.
Shooting off your backpack is going to be a little unstable. If you have a taller bipod, what do you do when you get a taller bipod? You're inducing variables that you can't control because those legs then are getting pretty weak down below, so that thing's going to start wobbling.
Well,
Yeah.
I have a solid tripod there, and I can shoot off it with a Triclops or
I've
throw it on
shot
Arca
a
Swiss.
lot of antelope off my tripod.
Yeah.
That's why I was asking you, because you would be able to speak to it much better than I can, obviously.
And
but-
what's funny is that the last time I shot off a tripod was at an antelope, because if I didn't have the tripod, I couldn't get over the grass.
Yep, same. Yep.
He was, his whole chest was covered up by grass. As soon as I got above that, I was great. And there's also this too. So I just mentioned Triclops, right? So that's a saddle that lock. You can either have it locked onto your gun or you could have it on the tripod and then do it. There's a solo and then there's the original. That's a whole another choice. Mm-hmm. I think what a lot of people do with shooting is so a lot of people ask about tripods. Can I shoot from this? Okay. Well, let's talk about that for a minute. So with the advent and everything happening with 1913 Picatinny rails and Arca Swiss, and everybody wants their gun locked in. And again, I'm old school, so I'm just going to say it. That's not my way. If you want to lock your gun in there and you're doing that, all the power to you. But everything I've ever shot and done and practiced where I've been able to lay my gun, on top of a shooting fork, for me, that works really, really well. Mm-hmm. So I would just tell you that the last antelope was from a shooting fork. It was very quick. I had to be able to move the tripod, and I laid the gun in, and I remember I couldn't get over the grass, and the antelope moved, and he got in just a little bit better spot. And basically, because of the contour of the stock of the rifle, I just leaned into the gun and pushed it higher up, and literally got that scope just enough, and 300 yards, and he dropped like a sack, and it was awesome. So if you didn't have the ability to move, but I had shot like that before, I had practiced like that before, and it was easy, and it worked really well.
Yeah. I think if you have, again, you're saying you have to practice with everything, which everyone should do, practice glassing, practice shooting off it. And if you're going to have a lightweight setup that you're backpacking with that you think you can throw a rifle on there, like, am I going to be able to throw my 14-pound rifle on a sub 2-pound bipod? Probably not the best of my ability. So I have to understand then, okay, yes, I can, but is there a better way to do it? I could just go 20 yards to my left and shoot because I have a lightweight setup, so that rifle shouldn't go on that. And so you have to think of all those pros and cons when you're taking that gear.
I have only known one instance that I've seen where a guy had an Arco Swiss rail on his gun. Unfortunately, I don't know the caliber. I just saw a picture of it where he locked it onto a VA5. And because of the recoil, I don't know that it didn't blow it up. It just, the tightening screw was obviously screwed up. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. That's just not my way to do it. I know that there's guys that preach that in the shooting schools, and I'm absolutely for that. Mm-hmm. If that's the way that you're schooled and you're doing it, at least the good thing of all that is that people are being conscientious about shooting. They know that there's an animal at the other end, and they're trying to do it the right way. Yep. And if your right way is doing it that way, good. I want you to do that. Mm-hmm. There's chocolate and vanilla. Mm-hmm. There's other ways to do that. Yeah. There's Neapolitan, or there's twists or whatever. There's all kinds of stuff out there. So don't be afraid to try it.
Yeah, all my antelope have been on the VA5 head with the Triclops. That's how I've shot a majority of my antelope. And the reason why I like that VA5 head is just like you were talking about. I can follow the animal. Yep. If anybody's ever hunted pronghorn, they know they don't stop, and they're always moving. So like when the animal does stop, you don't have that whip back on the scope, and you can press into it, lock it down enough where you can still move, but the second you let go, it's locked. Yeah. That's just what I have found that works well for me and the majority of the antelope hunts.
We sat one day, we were in Unit 23, we had a buck bedded, and Ty sat behind the rifle, mounted on a Triclops. I think we were there for 3 hours. We could not get this buck to move. And it's probably one of the most proudest, thing I've ever seen my kid do, like in a hunting scenario. He sat there for 3 hours baking in the sun, and we just could never get that deer to get in the right spot. And he was talking to me. It was like one of those moments where he was like, "Dad, hey, I need you to help prop up my back. Okay, we'll get a pack in there and get him set." But when he was there for 3 hours, I was like, my buddy, I'm like, Rob's looking at me, I'm looking at him, I'm like, hey, he's on it, we're good. And I'm sure there's probably a couple times we maybe, if it was Rob or I, maybe we could have tried to slip one in there, but I didn't want that experience. It was a 500-yard shot, which I was fully confident in his abilities, but at the same time, I was like, hey, I want to make this right. I mean, it's got to be right for that deer down there, and I want to give everybody and him a chance. I didn't want to have anything bad happen. But if it hadn't been for a tripod and a Triclops and just patience and talking and him being able to verbalize what we were doing in that moment, man, that could have turned out to be a really bad experience for him. Mm-hmm. But he remembers that time now where he's like, yeah, I remember when we sat there and that deer, he knows like, hey, I want to put that deer in a good spot so I can shoot him when it's open. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. Yep.
One more thing I want to touch on too, back to the ball head versus pan head. Uh-huh. Pan head, the reason why I prefer it a lot, we didn't really touch on it too much, is for the ability to grid out the mountain. I feel it's a lot easier to grid.
100%.
And also when I have heavy optic, so if I try to throw a heavy optic on a ball head and I try to loosen something to move it slightly, again, it's going to just go fall off to the side. Where that pan head, if I loosen it, it really can only go one way, forward, backwards, or it'll sit there and spin on its own axis. So I feel like I can, have a heavier optic on there a lot easier and be able to, and then also grid is very essential. So I can literally take it and grid them out up and down, left and right, go back through there, grid it again.
And I think, just to add on to what you're saying is I may have said this or touched on it earlier. I like to feather in the weight of my specific optic.
Yep.
And once I've done that, I could kind of do figure eights and go where I want with it and let off, and the weight of the binocular or spotting scope should hold.
Yep.
So if I have it held at a 45-degree angle and I'm looking up there, like when I let my hands off, I want it to stop. Mm-hmm. So when you're gridding, whether you're left, right, up, down, a lot of people do it like they read a page. So they're doing left to right, top to bottom. There's all kinds of different ways. Maybe that's another podcast.
You see me smirking right now.
So I know we're there, but that's the thing is that, generally speaking, like I will set the pan and I will figure out a start point, and I will go all the way through that. And depending whether I'm going up or down, I will come down and overlap the field of view. Excuse me. And I'll go back through. And I think that is so much easier to do with that handle.
Yep.
Because you can put that pressure on it, and you can move back and forth and be ultra methodical and slow. And there's some reoccurring themes that keep coming back, and I think it's just about having good glass, good field of view, edge to edge quality, having the head that will allow you to do these items and do them smoothly, because I think it's those transitions where you kind of caught a movement and you're like, was that a bird or was that like, the white little fairing of a deer, and you go back and you're like, ooh, man, that's a deer standing there. How did I miss that? Mm-hmm. And because he flicked an ear or whatever. And I think it's those methodical, smooth transitions that allow your eyes to adjust and pick up things that it's not picking up.
Yeah, and what's really great too about the pan heads is I can, like you said, you can feather that tension knob, or I can get that tension knob set perfectly so the elevation left and right. I can actually just look in the binos, and I can just use like my nose and my eyes and just move it back and forth. So it's also making it a little bit more stable. So I haven't had my hand 100%. On there sometimes, and I can do the same thing on the vertical when I'm gridding as well.
Yeah, I just like pan heads better. And maybe there's guys out there doing it the other way, and if that's what they want to do, that's great. And I more the power to them, and they're not wrong.
Yeah.
If they're successful, great. Use it and say it, teach it, whatever you're going to do. I just have a different way of thinking about it.
Yep. One more thing.
Yes, sir.
I want to discuss. So everyone knows this is going to be me speaking for trail right now. So I'm probably going to murder this whole statement. But this is one of trail's biggest advice. So what are we in right now?
Well, I love trail, so you got me on the edge of my seat on this deal.
Okay, so right now, as most people know or should have known, it's tax season.
Oh, yeah.
One of the biggest benefits trail feels is using that tax refund.
Yep.
If you need a pair of optics, what better way to get a tax refund to put some of that cash? Call up Cody.
I will make it worth your while.
And put that investment to where it's best spent, which we've just discussed right now. Optics are it.
100%. I will help you spend those dollars to the maximize everything that we've just talked about. But what not a better time to do that? I mean, if you're going to have a tax return and basically let the government hold on to your money for X amount of time, there is no better way for me to spend it than to do something I'm going to do outdoors, and glass is a big purchase, and I think that's a great time to do it.
And you can double up if you're an insider member and you have some reward points banked up.
100%.
Use that tax return. Use some of those reward points at GOHUNT.
100%.
And get some optics. Get a tripod. Get a pan head. Get a ball head. Whatever it may be.
I like Trail's thinking there.
He swears by it, and I don't think he's wrong. I mean, he does swear by it, though. That is literally that's his thing.
And I think he's actually said he has done that before. Like that's when you get that cash back when you're whatever age you are.
I would tell you, I probably hear that at least 5 to 10 times a week. Hey, Cody, I'm doing this. This is what I want to do. Hey, what are we doing on this? And what's the price on that? And how many points? And all right, how do I maximize this whole thing? Okay, well let's look at it. Let's see what you want a spotting scope, you want binos, what do you want to do? And once that's done, I mean the money's there for them.
Yep.
It's an easy choice after that. It's like having a little, it's just, some people look at their tax returns as a savings account.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So, and there's nothing like having some money in your pocket to buy something that you really want.
Exactly.
But it happens a lot. So most people will say, hey, I just did my taxes and it's estimated it's going to be this. So I build them a draft order, send it to them, let them look at it. And they call me, a couple of weeks later, now sometimes those things come in 24 hours, you never know.
Yeah.
But bottom line is people call back all the time and go, hey, I got my tax return, I'm ready to go.
Yep.
And I think that's a great opportunity to do that.
Good job, Trail.
Way to go, Trail.
Trail's on the money on that one.
Yeah, wish our boy was here right
He's
now.
normally on the money pretty much.
He
most
talked
of the
about
time.
know how to maximize
Yes.
all of it. That's the guy.
That's your guy.
100%.
Yeah. So I think we're at the 2-hour mark right now. Is there anything?
Are we?
Yeah.
We did 2 hours.
Conversation's been flowing.
We
time
need to
flies when
follow
we're having
up
fun.
with Cody on just technique.
I know,
alone. That'd be another 2-hour
That's
one.
what I'm always like. Gosh, we have Cody here, and there's so much more stuff I want to talk about.
Yeah.
Just tell me when you want me to come.
Yeah.
I will bring it up. I will get it on the books, and we'll make it happen.
Especially when you talked about your gridding from left to right. I really wanted to jump in there and say my way to do it, but we'll save that for another time. We
here's the
touched on
thing,
it
though.
before.
The truth, just to touch on it, I let the train dictate what I'm doing.
Yeah.
I mean, it's all about what the train tells me to do.
I just scatter around and try to get lucky.
Well,
Spray
you know what,
and
though?
pray with the
But
operator.
I do
Pray,
that
buddy.
too when I first get somewhere. I'm looking for the escape routes. I'm looking for the obvious.
Yeah, I mean, I'm
the
halfway joking,
Yeah.
but when I first set out, it's just spray and pray, all the good spots, and then
Absolutely.
go methodical.
Yeah.
And you're crazy if you don't do it that way. And if you're hunting with a partner, literally, like when you crawl over a saddle into a little basin or whatever, in my eyes, it's like a military movement in there. Like everybody has a job and everybody knows what they're doing. Looking at the easy places, and one guy's doing that, and the other guy's setting up and getting this big optics on it. So if something is sneaking out, we can identify it and figure out what it is right away.
Yeah.
There's all kinds of different scenarios to do that. But
All right, it's official. We're going to do a technique one follow up.
I can't wait.
There we go.
100%.
Cody and I had a podcast back then. I can't remember what episode it was, but maybe we can find it and throw it in the description notes. But we did one where I did a little deep dive on this, and I kind of want to do a further deep dive on Cody and I's thoughts on gridding.
I think it's the most. I truly believe, and yes, this is my expertise and what I love to do, but I think it's one of the most rewarding things that people, like I was at dinner the other night with my wife, and I had a guy literally was staring at me during dinner, and not staring, but it was just, I could tell. Maybe he recognized me. I don't know what. I wasn't even thinking about that. Guy literally comes up, I'm like half like eating a cheeseburger or something, and he walks right up to the table with his wife, and he's like, "Hey, you are Cody, right?" And I said, "Yes, sir." He goes, "Well, I really don't want to bug you," but he goes, "I'm a huge fan." And he goes, I literally debated the entire time, I'm over here sitting bugging my wife, telling her, and she's like, "Just go talk to him." And it was just my wife and I. And he's like, "Cody, what you talked about in the glassing and the optics," he's like, it changed how I did things. You can say you can call me whatever you want. You can tell me I don't know anything about whatever. But when someone says that to you, it makes all of this, it makes all the hard work that we do to get these products, and it makes it all worth it, because it's like that guy went outdoors and enjoyed himself doing it.
Yep.
And maybe we had a small part in making him better at what he did, and he's fully on board.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And I mean, those instances, and for God's sakes, I'm just a guy who puts his pants on just like you guys. I just love to do what I do. I'm not Like I'm not like I was. My wife was like, that guy was really. He was actually like, really, like being courteous. Like he was, and I'm like,
You showed him the light. He was thankful.
I appreciate that. But if you see me out somewhere, come up to me, talk to me. I want to hear about stuff like this.
Yep, Seth brings in a good point. So if you guys have any sort of optics questions at all, obviously it's going to be on YouTube. If you've stuck around this long, hopefully you have. You can always reach out to Cody at optics@gohunt.com, shoot an email. Drop those comments, questions you have on either YouTube of this podcast, or jump over to the article on GoHunt. Drop your questions. Also would love to know what other topics or discussions we can have with Cody next time we start building that list up. That way when we get him here, we can answer you guys' questions or dive into whatever subject you want to do. And you can also call Cody at 702-847-8747.
And email at optics@gohunt.com. And hey, I'm going to give a shout out to that guy that did say that, Danny and Megan Gilmore.
There you go.
They can
Shout out.
Yeah, absolutely.
All about shout outs on the podcast.
But they're customers. They're locked in, and that's
it.
such a special experience. And
Love it.
So shout out to those guys and thank you. And you were not bugging me.
Love it. Appreciate you being on here, Cody.
Hey, this was fun. We're going to do this again.
Like I said, time is flying by.
And we got some stuff to research and find out too.
Yeah, we do.
That's also what I wanted to get into, but we'll have to do another podcast. Yeah.
Follow up. Official.
No, absolutely.
All right.
I think we get some medical.
Get a doctor in here.
There's a guy here in Vegas that has reached out, and I think it would be worth maybe getting him in here and getting a podcast done.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Sounds good.
And I know that if he's listening at all, he's probably going, I tried to do that with you, a couple of years, but now it's appropriate. Now it's right. We got our podcast. We're doing what we're doing, and I think we could do something like that.
Sounds good.
All right. Appreciate you, buddy.
You got it, buddy.
Appreciate it.
Anytime. Thank you for having me.
We out.